public hearing / confirmation hearing on the appointment of Mr. Joseph I. Cruz as Chief of Police of the Guam Police Department is hereby convened. For the information of the public, in compliance with the open government law, the initial notification was distributed to the stakeholders as well as to our media partners on the 17th of July, with the second notification of the public hearing / confirmation hearing distributed on the 23rd of July. Also, for the information of the community, the Guam Legislature, Legislature in Gowan, had received the appointment of Mr. Joseph I. Cruz as the Chief of the Guam Police Department on May 22nd. And in conformance with the public law with regards to the qualifications, just so that everyone understands, the committee had to initiate much of the activities as it applies to the confirmation of the Chief of Police in accordance with the law. And this is found under subsection 77109 in Title 10 Guam Code Annotated, and it highlights the appointment of the Chief of Police. The Chief of Police shall be appointed by Magala in Guam with the advice and consent of Legislature in Guam, and shall meet the following qualifications. And these are items that the committee had to initiate and work on completion prior to this particular confirmation hearing. Be at least 35 years of age, confirmed with a U.S. passport, have no less than 15 years of progressive experience in a government law enforcement position, including at least 5 years at the supervisory command level and 5 years in a senior position with a law enforcement management responsibilities or equivalent executive management experience in the field of public administration, criminal justice administration, or law, or a closely related field or discipline. And this was confirmed through the resume that has been submitted by the nominee to the committee as well as to members of the Legislature in Guam. Also, in addition to that, there has been an additional request made to the independent investigator to conduct an evaluation and translation of the appointee's experience and to include it in that particular report once it's finalized. The third item, according to section 77109, graduated with a bachelor's degree or higher in police science, criminal justice administration, public administration law, or a closely related field or discipline from an accredited institution recognized by the Council for Higher Education Accreditation or its successors. And this was confirmed with a certified copy of the transcripts from the University of Guam for both degrees, and copies of both degrees have been distributed to members of the committee and members of Legislature in Guam. Number four, the fourth requirement is have no felony, domestic or family violence convictions. Note, this is confirmed through the police and the court clearance documents that have been provided to the committee. The fifth item for compliance with the requirement for Chief of Police is have no misdemeanor convictions involving moral turpitude, confirmed through the police as well as the court clearance. Item number 6, submit to and pass a drug screening test, including but not limited to urinalysis testing. This item showed negative drug test results as of the 12th of June, and that was conducted by the Department of Administration. Item number 7, be of good health and good moral character, and this is where the confirmation process and the receipt of public testimony as well as written testimony will be able to cover that particular requirement in the law. Item number 8, submit to psychological testing. This was completed on the 22nd of June by Dr. Andrea Lighthouser. Also, item number 9 is submit to a polygraph examination, and this was completed on the 26th of June by Officer Limo. And then finally, item number 10, submit to a thorough investigation of his or her background and moral character. This is an ongoing investigation. This, in addition to written and oral testimony that the committee will be receiving from the public this afternoon, as well as the subsequent days as the committee decides in terms of closing out the committee report. The only other item that is pending in accordance with the provisions provided by law is the ongoing investigation in which the committee chair has given the investigator up until the 30th of July to be able to submit that to the members of the legislature. So in compliance with the existing law, ladies and gentlemen, the committee has done its due diligence in making sure that we check mark all the boxes in terms of the original requirements in compliance with the existing code in the law, and now we are conducting the confirmation hearing for the appointee. I'd like to, before I proceed by calling individuals up to the front, I'd like to recognize the members of Relocation Gowan and the committee who have joined us this afternoon. The Vice Chair of the committee, Senator Tom Atta. Thank you, Senator, for joining us this afternoon. To his immediate left is Senator Tommy Morrison. To his immediate left is Senator Dennis Rodriguez. And then to Senator Rodriguez's immediate left is Senator Tony Atta. To my right is Senator Mcninch, and then Vice Speaker DJ Cruz. Thank you very much, Senators, for joining us this afternoon during this particular confirmation hearing. We will call up 5 individuals in sequence in accordance with the sign-up sheet, and if I can invite the following individuals. I do understand that some individuals in the audience may have signed in with the intent of expressing your support or other position with regards to the nominee. If by any chance I do call up your name and your intent is just to signify that in fact your position on the nominee, then by all means please signify that you will not be providing oral testimony. But at this time we will proceed with oral testimony and invite Chief Joey St. Nicholas from the Guam Fire Department, Marisha Cruz St. Nicholas, Mr. Peter J. Santos, Charles Esteves, and Ms. Susan Regis. If I can invite these individuals to please join us up front. Perhaps this statement doesn't apply to you, Chief, because you've been here regularly, but to everyone in the panel, please, I'd like to ask you to ensure that the mic is on. You identify yourself for the record once you're given that opportunity to speak, and then go ahead and provide your testimony. We'll start off with Chief St. Nicholas.
Hafaday, Senator Aguon, and good afternoon. Start from my left, Hafaday, Vice Speaker Cruz, Senator St. Nicholas, Senator Tom Atta, Senator Morrison, Senator Rodriguez, and Senator Tony Atta. Thank you for allowing us to be here. Before I begin my testimony, I'm actually very honored to be the first to testify for this confirmation hearing for Joseph I. Cruz, because probably what I'm going to say in my testimony is going to be repeated throughout this afternoon. And so I can go on with saying that I probably didn't copy other people's testimony. But Hafaday, I take great pride in highly recommending Mr. Joseph I. Cruz to be confirmed as the Chief of Police, Guam Police Department. I have had the distinct honor to work with Major Retired Joseph I. Cruz, most recently during my career as a commissioned officer in the Guam Army National Guard, and during deployment to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Mr. Cruz served as the Battalion Executive Officer, or XO, which is the second in command of an infantry battalion consisting of over 600 soldiers. In addition to exercising command in the absence of the battalion commander, the XO is the Chief of Staff and coordinates personnel administration and logistics support. Mr. Cruz performed exceptionally well, displaying high competence, confidence, intelligence, and dedication to task and purpose. As a company commander that was directly affected by his performance, his leadership and guidance provided a steady base for myself, our soldiers, and subordinate leaders to accomplish any mission. Chief Cruz's leadership style and success can be directly attributed to his genuine care and respect for his subordinates and the organization. Chief Cruz maintains a high standard of professionalism and physical fitness and continues to hone his craft through his pursuit for higher education in a doctoral program. In turn, he demands the same of those around him and provides mentorship and guidance as needed. The Guam Police Department is ready for his type of leadership. In his short time as the acting Chief of Police, he has faced critical issues and tragic events that without his strong leadership could have proven worse. I believe his work ethic and passionate service to our police officers has been demonstrated above expectations. As a Marine, soldier, and police officer, he has demonstrated his desire to serve and protect. He is determined, devoted to duty, and loyal to the police force, and more important, our island of Guam. Mr. Joseph I. Cruz is the best candidate for the Chief of Police and humbly deserves your confirmation. Thank you very much.
Buenas Zenhafaday, Senators. Senator Cruz, Senator St. Nicholas, Senator Aguon, Senator Atta, Senator Morrison, Senator Rodriguez, Senator Tony Ada. My name is Marisha Cruz Nicholas, principal of Notre Dame High School. I am here in support of Joseph I. Cruz's appointment as Guam's Chief of Police. For 18 years, I have been an educator at Notre Dame. For 18 years, I have witnessed that our students appreciate and value the role models that stem from our island's government and private sector. For 18 years, my students' safety and education have been of utmost importance. Education is not only learning concepts in a textbook. Education is about empowering, inspiring, and challenging our youth to be the best citizens that contribute positively to our society. In the early 2000s, Joseph I. Cruz empowered and inspired my students at Notre Dame. As the coordinator of our school's career day entitled Reach Higher, I invited then Officer Joseph I. Cruz to speak to our students in his capacity as a Guam police officer. I usually sneak in and out of presentations, but for his presentation, I sat in for more time than I should have. I was impressed by his ability to engage a packed room of students that would someday be making a difference as leaders on our island. And what do you know? Several years later, I met one of my graduates. He was in a Guam Police Department uniform. When I asked him what inspired him to become a police officer, he attributed his interest in law enforcement to the presentation by Joseph I. Cruz. I'm amazed at how effective our career day was, but not surprised how one of my students felt years later after attending Joseph I. Cruz's dynamic presentation. We could all lecture to our students about how safe we can make our community, but if we don't make them feel as if they are capable, then we haven't done our job. As Maya Angelou, a famous poet, once said, I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. I feel confident. I feel confident about Joseph I. Cruz's ability to lead the Guam Police Department. He will work diligently to ensure that safety is what we feel. He will work diligently, as he already has, to educate the youth about being positive, contributing members of society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cruz Nicholas. Mr. Santos?
Buenas and half a day, man, honorably na senador. Si Peter Santos inano. Zamatudyo gunipago, nahaani para bay testigo, zan para bay sapota, esti nakilis dano as Joseph Cruz. Iinadzik i gobyerno para imagas polisiya. Magayit na gof importante esti na posisyon era i Chief of Police. Sa sen preciso bandan sa fun publiko gi komunidad. Gi opinyono sen maulik esti na inadzik niya i gobyerno as Joseph Cruz. Ginin policeman jo zaman hami jan si Joe gimina 35 na sitkilun akademiyan polisiya. Tati gianay manistabaham gi akademiya maadzik si Joe ni John Mami Kadri na paragwiza si Joe John Mami class commander. Sendi Nancy iinadzik niya as Joe gihin na tempo tagwi pago na tempo sendi Nancy iinadzik niya ni gobyerno as Joe. Ana maggraduaham, si Joe gumanay mas 3 kilo na award. Era i-Commander's Award. Diyan kung todo lokwi i-Top Gun, hagan na. Guahu utuli 2 na award lokwi. Pues guiza 2, guahu 2, lo guahu uganda i-tiebreaker. Uganda i-tiebreaker, i-Haji mas bonito. Lo fuera di ositan, uso sojo amjo para na prevesti na minaulik kilis jano. Esta antingo na kwalifikaw itaw-taw. Lo hatsa preciso lokwi, ikwalidad na itaw-taw. Komento sa lokwi si Chief San Nicolas po di kwalidad. Jo lo, baila jabay aumenta talo dididi. Sinya bay na asiguraw hamjo na sen malati, sen tomtum, men halum. Hak komprendi, respetadjon, humit di, ongok ko dyan, dyan maulik i korason niya si Joe. Ja estigui utumo bay sangan za bay na tungam ju put si jo. Megay ukuntusi na policeman. Ja ni unu sumatsangan. Humit di mampus si jo. Ja adju manesisita gib departamento. Tatungwa nagwaha ti man bonito masusedi giman mapus siya nasakan. Man mumumu entusiya. Megay disgusto, megay aplatsa, megay hinalang. Si Jo gwija sinya ha reglay gima. Megay sinya ha tsogwi po karihi. Dan gwija sinya muna gasgas. Sinya unang oku si Jo. Si Diyos maasi para itempo dyan ni atensyon ni Jo.
Jesus masti pedyo po di put it to gupago. Please, Ms. Regis.
Half a day and good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am Susan C. Regis, an Administrative Secretary too, and currently assigned to the Office of the Chief of Police, Guam Police Department. I've been employed with the Guam Police Department for more than 29 years. My entire professional life has been dedicated to serving as secretary to most of the high-ranking officers and officials of the Guam Police Department. And prior to my employment with GPD, I served as secretary to Attorney John Bond, a land claims litigation attorney who cared so much to help the original landowners of Guam seek compensation for their lands taken by the military during World War II. Attorney Bond was successful in obtaining $39.5 million land claim settlement for the landowners of Guam. I also serve as secretary for Attorney Joaquin C. Ariola, former Speaker, 9th and 10th Guam Legislature, and Attorney Elizabeth Barrett Anderson, the current Attorney General of Guam. I consider these individuals as some of the great public leaders. And now, I am honored to have been chosen by another great man, Mr. Joseph I. Cruz, to serve as his secretary. I appear before you today to support the confirmation of Mr. Joseph I. Cruz to the Chief of Police position. Since the appointment of Mr. Cruz as Acting Chief of Police on May 23, 2015, I've been impressed with some of the positive changes he has been making for the improvement of our department. First, he has merged two offices, the Chief of Police and the Police Commander offices, to cut costs on equipment use. This also has created an environment wherein personnel within these two offices get closer with one another and start working as a team. This has also strengthened personal relationships and built strong teamwork among the personnel assigned at these two offices. Secondly, he cut down the department expenditures by not allowing holiday and overtime work for non-priority tasks. This is indeed a good and essential fiscal management. I believe Mr. Cruz performs as a leader, not a boss. As one of the famous quotations I read many years ago about the difference between a boss and a leader, it says that a boss would say to employees to get to work on time. A leader would get there to work ahead of time. And the boss has no time for little or minor things. And the leader finds time for things that count. Mr. Cruz is a leader. During the 2 months period, Mr. Cruz has been able to meet with most of the employees assigned to the various commands of the Guam Police Department, personally seeing and thanking each one of them for the work they do, making them feel comfortable and letting them know they are members of this department. He has also been very responsive to many requests for his presence at various community and government events, ensuring he finds time to accommodate each of these requests and does not miss attending any of them. Based on my personal observations, Mr. Cruz has proven himself to be a firm and effective leader. Since his acting appointment on May 23, 2015, he has been able to work closely with GPD command staff in facilitating the completion of his directives. He reviews every project, ensuring they're being done within the legal process and in a timely manner. With this, I can say that he has the support and cooperation of our command staff. I observe Mr. Cruz to be well organized in his work and an effective time manager. He blocks a certain period of his work schedule for the careful and thorough review of every correspondence being presented to him for his approval and signature, ensuring nothing falls between the cracks. He works above and beyond 8 hours on a daily basis as well as weekends and holidays to ensure he completes the pending workload requiring action to be taken by him. Mr. Cruz presents himself in a very polite and professional manner in dealing with many people from all walks of life. I usually receive nice comments about him from people who get to meet him at the office. Having worked with many great leaders during my entire secretarial career in Guam for the past 37 years, I see in Mr. Cruz some similarity of the good qualifications of these great leaders. To name a few, they're retired GPD Captain and former Senator Adolfo Palacios, retired Colonel and former GPD Chief of Police Colonel Adolf Isgambiluri, retired U.S. Marine Major and former Guam Homeland Security Advisor Michael D. Carey, the late GPD Deputy Chief of Police Colonel Ben Leon Guerrero, retired former Chief of Police Colonel Earl Agigi, retired former Chief of Police Edward Cambina, former head of the FBI Guam CNMI and former GPD Deputy Chief of Police Ron Dervish, and former head of the FBI Guam CNMI and former Chief of Police and Senator Frankie Ishizaki. I find Mr. Cruz to have possessed many principles, management styles, integrity, ideas, values, and dedication with the great leaders listed above. And I am confident he will be a strong and effective leader who will make significant improvements for the betterment of our Guam Police Department. I therefore humbly and respectfully ask this esteemed committee to consider the confirmation of Mr. Joseph I. Cruz to the position of Chief of Police, Guam Police Department. I thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to present my testimony during this public hearing today. Tangkulo na si Jus Maasi.
Thank you very much, Ms. Regis, for your testimony this afternoon. Mr. Esteves?
Mr. Chairman and members of the Guam Legislature, I'm here to provide oral testimony supporting the confirmation of Joseph I. Cruz to the position of Chief of Police, Guam Police Department. I did provide J.I. Cruz with a copy of a letter of recommendation, but I can easily talk about all the bullet points on it. I've served of Joseph Cruz in a number of capacities in the Guam National Guard since me coming into the Guam Guard. What I do want to touch on is when Joseph Cruz served in the role as the mobilization officer. I can honestly say that it was through Joseph Cruz's experience and mentorship that I was able to bring home 54 soldiers safely back from a combat tour in Afghanistan. He fought to provide us with resources, and it was his signature that went on the sheet to certify that we were ready to move forward and mobilize. I've also served with Joseph Cruz in the battalion staff as when he was the executive officer. And I can attest to his technical and his proficiency in the planning of military operations. As you know, the battalion, 1st United 4th Infantry Regiment, we have 600 soldiers. So given the size of the Guam Police Department, it's an easy task for Joseph Cruz. Additionally, I've served with him in our last deployment to Afghanistan, and we've had our share of problems, from higher headquarters, just different issues with the unit we're taking over, and he was actually the go-to person for the battalion commander to help alleviate some of these issues. When we lost 2 of our soldiers in our last combat tour, it was Joseph Cruz who was able to rally the staff, bring us together, and help us come up with a lot of our plans and development of our SOPs to help mitigate further loss and casualties. And then finally, on professional development, It was actually Joseph Cruz who actually motivated me to go ahead and pursue my doctorates as well. And so, yeah, I fully support his confirmation, and I'm sure he'll be a great chief of police.
That is for your testimony this afternoon, Senators. Unless there's any pressing issues, I'm going to go ahead and release the panel members. Thank you very much again for your testimony this afternoon. I'd like to invite the following individuals: Fran Regis, General Rod Leongaro, Ron Mcninch, David Leongaro, and Tom Babauta. Once again, if I can invite the following individuals: Fran Regis, General Leongaro, Ron Mcninch, David Leongaro, and Tom Babauta. Okay, did you want to present oral? Okay. Thank you, Fran. In that case, can I also invite Matt Charfers? All good, Lamun. Thoughts of General, we'll open up with you.
Good afternoon, Vice Speaker Cruz, Senators Nicholas, Chairman Aguon, Senator Tom Atta, Senator Morrison, Senator Rodriguez, Senator Anthony Atta, Tony Atta, and Senator Frank Blas, Senator Espaldon. I'm Roderick Leon Guerrero, the Adjutant General of the Guam National Guard and the Director of Military Affairs. After hearing Fire Chief Joyce Nicholas's testimony, I have to talk with my aide. Sounds like Chief Joy copied my testimony. I highly recommend you confirm Major Retired Joseph I. Cruz as the Chief of Police. Recently, Joe completed his Army career, which culminated with his assignment as a Special Project Officer to the Office of the Adjutant General in the Guam National Guard. While being assigned to the Office of the Adjutant General, he was responsible for many projects to include reviewing and rewriting policy letters, researching regulations, planning or coordinating special events. I have known Joe for over 10 years, and I am completely confident in his ability to think critically, plan creatively, and act in a professional and efficient manner. He has an impressive background and a drive and passion for excellence. He would be a valuable asset to any employer seeking an intelligent, analytical, courteous, approachable leader. Joe has had a diverse military career as an officer. He has served the Guam National Guard in positions of increased responsibility as a result of his outstanding leadership skills and performance. One of his accomplishments that is noteworthy was his role as the battalion executive officer in the Guam Guard's largest deployment. His role as the executive officer was to ensure that soldiers were qualified to deploy. Soldiers must meet training and administrative requirements prior to deploying. Joel's role as the XO was to ensure that soldiers were equipped and met all administrative, medical, and behavioral health requirements. Joe is hardworking, reliable, and is a very capable individual. He has always performed above and beyond, and his expectations has always impressed me with his ability to juggle a myriad of tasks at once. In closing, Joe would be an ideal addition to anyone's workplace. His determination and drive to succeed, combined with his innate intellectual skills, will ensure trusted results. He has my highest recommendation, and I vouch for his character, integrity, and honesty. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Leongaro, for your testimony this afternoon. Dr. Ron Mcninch.
Thank you, Senators. My name is Ron Mcninch, and I am a professor at the University of Guam. And I'm here today basically to relate some of my experiences working with Joe at the University of Guam during his time with me there, and also to provide a very high and positive recommendation for him. I worked with Joe between 1996 and 2000 approximately. He is a wonderful example of what happens when a person uses the Doc Sanchez program to become a professional within the government. And in fact, I was at that time chair of the Doc Sanchez program, and he was absolutely wonderful. He graduated with highest honors from our Master of Public Administration program, and I wrote about several things in my written recommendation for him. But I wanted to briefly recap a couple of quick things. He does have a military background. He served in the most elite units in the U.S. Marine Corps. He's in Force Recon, and is a former Special Operations. Also, in the Guam Police Department, he was in Special Operations. He was a SWAT officer. He has physical, emotional, and mental endurance. And in fact, this really, to me, we can talk about management of government and management of people, but then there's this qualitative issue of leadership. And if I can say one thing about Joe Cruz, he is a leader, and a leader in the most positive respects. The former speaker here, the school principal, I'm sorry I didn't get her name, she gave a quote from Maya Angelou that talked about people will forget your words, but they won't forget your feelings. Right now, there are 2 Guam police departments. There are old-timers, and that's people who've been there more than 10 or 12 years, and that's one group. And then there are the new, younger department members. For the younger department members, our Chief Joe would be an excellent role model and set a number of great standards for them and set goals for them that are very, very good. But from the old-timer standpoint, he shared experiences with them. He served with them in critical times during Guam's law enforcement history. For example, he was grabbing Chinese refugees 2 at a time as they were climbing up the hills when they were coming onto the shores here. And he's working day and night with the other good Guam police officers doing this. We had nearly, if I recall, it was over 1,000 refugees during a very short space of time that this was going on. He did this. I remember him at Typhoon Paka and the service that he did along with our other police officers during that critical time frame. You know, no one forgets a typhoon, especially a bad typhoon like Paka. That's the Joe Cruz I remember. And I also remember the Joe Cruz that was the first responder at the KL crash. There are things that words cannot describe that I know this gentleman has went through and served at the highest levels of service for our community already. He has earned respect. And I think that he certainly has my respect. Senators, that's all I wanted to say today, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be able to give a very high recommendation for Chief Joe Cruz. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mcninch, for your testimony this afternoon. Mr. Leongo?
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is David Leonguero, and sir, I just signed in my name. I didn't figure I was going to be up here giving a speech here.
The only one.
Well, with together. But to share with you, though, I know Joe Cruz not as long as these other guys and ladies have, but my first impression when I first met him, when I met him at the gym, and I said, man, this guy's physique is, I need to go play on the little boy side, you know, just you know, but what he did that really caught me off guard, me being a senior citizen, an elderly. Joe came up to me and just introduced himself out of nowhere, and I don't know him. Came up and introduced himself to me, and we just started a conversation. And from there, we just hit it, you know. I have the greatest, most respect for this gentleman. And guys, I'm a retired Air Force veteran, okay? I've been into 2 campaigns, which is the Vietnam War and also Desert Storm. And with our brothers and sisters from the Marine Corps coming over, I believe, starting the end of this year, who more than Joe Cruz will be able to manage and handle the situations coming in? Okay? You got a law passed that they say that GPD has to start working to get back in shape. Look at Joe Cruz's physique. What more than a leader showing the example, leading with example? You know, I'm a commoner. I'm not one of these senators or who that, you know, to really go out and say things. But as far as for my concern, and even I know most of the people out the common people, we give for fully support for Joe Cruz. And I beg you to please nominate him. He deserves it, and I think you won't regret it. I know I won't regret it. I thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leongoro, for your testimony this afternoon. Mr. Babata?
Happy day and good afternoon, Chairman, Senators. My name is Tom Babauta. I'm a licensed clinical social worker currently serving as the chairman for the Guam Board of Social Work and the only behavioral health officer in the Guam National Guard, or Army National Guard. I'm here today in support of the confirmation of Joseph Cruz. Up until 2013, my only interaction with Mr. Cruz was when I would occasionally see him working out in the gym. What stood out to me then was how focused, driven, and intense he was when working out. In 2013, I was deployed to Afghanistan with Task Force Guam's 1st 294th Infantry Battalion as an embedded behavioral health officer. Mr. Cruz was my immediate supervisor. He serves as the executive officer, the XO, the right-hand man to the battalion commander. If any of you have had the opportunity to see the intensity he brings to his workouts, he brings that same work ethic to his professional life. The Army requires the following every mission, an after-action review be conducted to evaluate lessons learned. It reviews the mission successes and shortcomings so that we don't make the same mistakes. I've witnessed firsthand how he has implemented this concept in his life personally and professionally. He constantly tried to improve himself and the organization and always looked out for the best interests of the soldiers. A combat environment pushes people to extremes. It brings out the best and worst in individuals. I was impressed with Mr. Cruz's disposition and leadership style under extreme stress in an austere environment. He takes time to analyze situations and is not afraid to make tough decisions. He is a hard-charging, no-nonsense individual. He has high expectations for those under his leadership, but he leads by example and provides the support needed for mission success. In closing, I am in support of Mr. Cruz's confirmation. I'm confident in his ability to lead the Guam Police Department. With his wealth of experience, he brings to the table qualities of a good leader. Thank you.
This is my time to talk. Senators, Ofede, Buenas. My name is Matt Jarfus. I'm a Sergeant Major of the Guam National Guard. I've been in the military for over 33 years. I've known Joe Cruz since I was a little kid. We've never really hung around, drunk beer or anything like that. But what I do say is the Army is a culture just like Guam. In our culture, we have 7 values. You know, it's loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, integrity, and personal courage. Mr. Cruz has all of that. If he didn't have all of that, he'd be hearing a lot from me as a Sergeant Major. The other thing I admire about this guy is he was Force Recon in the United States Marine Corps. Not anybody can just go through that. He went through the baptism of fire and the trials. We served together in the special operations, not side by side, but I've been in the special operations command for a little while. And to be in that world, you really have to be mentally tough, physically strong, morally straight. If you don't have any of those 3 things, you're definitely not going to last more than a day. Now, I have nothing but great things, and like Chief Nicholas said, everything I'm going to say is going to mirror exactly what he said. I have nothing but good things to say about this guy. I hope that you guys nominate him to be the next Chief of Police of the Guam Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Major. And to those in uniform and those who are not in uniform, thank you for your service to our island, to our country. Senators, if there's no pressing questions or issues for the panel, I would like to go ahead and dismiss the panel members and invite the following individuals: Marian Charfras, Paul Tapao, Stephen Aguon, Mr. Lee Weber, and former Senator Mark Charfras. Once again, if I can invite the following individuals: Marian Charfras, Paul Tapao, Stephen Aguon, Lee Weber, and Mark Charfras. Yeah. Oh, it's up to them if they want to come up. Like I said, folks, if by any chance you did sign in into the attendance roster, if you would like to refrain from providing oral testimony, then just signify and let me know, okay, as I call your name. But okay. We're good, Marianne. Marianne, did you want to provide testimony? Or okay. We're good, man. So if I can also invite Eugene Charfris. You sure, Paul? Okay, I guess we'll start off with you, Mr. Weber.
Thanks. Senators, it's good to be here. It's nice to see you all today, your smiling faces. Well, almost all your smiling faces.
Almost all.
I actually signed in. I didn't know that I was going to testify, but I'll be here. I'm here in support of Chief Cruz. He and I really probably don't know each other very well, but we spent time at the gym together over the years. And unlike some other people who testified, I was always impressed with his enthusiasm and his ability to push around an awful lot of weight at the gym. And I you know, for me, because I'm kind of frail, I'm not, you know, muscular. I'm fast though. But his work, his efforts in the Marine Corps with reconnaissance units, that's where I spent my time. I can testify that that's not an easy task. The people who testified on his behalf from the Guard spoke very highly of him. I think his time through life is probably as bumpy as mine or many of yours. None of us are perfect, but he's a driven guy, and my sense is he's an honest guy, and I think he'd make a darn good chief of police. And I just urge you to give him that opportunity to do so. I think he'd be good for the community. I think the community would be thankful that he's there. We face a lot. We face some very troubling times right now, in particular, in the police department, and I think his leadership will show. So, with that, I give you my vote of support for him. I think he'll do a great job. Give him a chance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weber. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of this legislature for providing this opportunity. I can go ahead and speak on behalf as far as experience. I have had several opportunities to sit down with Acting Chief J.I. Cruz as the Acting Chief in Command Staff meetings. And I've had the opportunity to sit in several of those meetings. And what I did observe is that he has brought us together. He has brought this department where we have had a lot of infighting and a lot of, finger pointing. And we seem to come together and we seem to gel together under his leadership. What he brings to the table is the knowledge, the drive, and the leadership that is sorely needed at the Guam Police Department. I think that you're going to see a huge difference. As a matter of fact, you're seeing a difference today. How long has it been to see us come together as a family, as a unit, one united unit behind the acting chief right now? And a lot of us haven't really known him that well, but you can sense it, you can feel it. You've known that this guy knows what he's talking about, and he spends a lot of time knowing what needs to be done. He comes in the morning at 7:30, he's there at his desk. He doesn't even leave until 7 or 8 o'clock at night, sometimes even later. What he brings with him, you see before you. You see before you in this crowd the community. You see before you in this crowd his family. You see before you in this crowd the Guam Police Department. You see before you in this crowd the Guam National Guard, and many people that have just been touched by this individual in some point or in time in their lives, and they're coming before you as one, as we are as one in the Guam Police Department, to say, this is the man, this is the one, this is the man, this is the leader that we need at the Guam Police Department. So please, expeditiously act on his nomination and confirm him as our Chief of Police. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Charfris. Steve?
Is it on?
There you go.
Do I need a mic? Half a day, good afternoon to everybody, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of the senators and members of the committee. Actually, this is the second time that was placed in a situation to deliver a speech or speak on, impromptu speech, the way I said. The first time was the 40%. I was grabbed by my former chief over here, say, hey, Sergeant Steve, Where's Sergeant Steve? Sir, I'm here. Oh, I want you to sit in front of the senators. It's like, man. And today it happened again. But, you know, I think we're kind of getting used to it a little bit. I wanted to actually testify earlier, but I asked one of your members if they have any Tagalog interpreters. But they told me that they don't have one. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and support my chief. And lo and behold, sir, you called me. And, you know, I'm not really good in public speaking because, you know, for one thing, English is my second language. So any of you guys that know or speak Tagalog, be able to interpret, do some interpretation. Sir, can you do that for me? Okay. Just want to say, listening to all the people that testified here, I'm going to say probably the best one I've heard so far is my fellow Filipina, Susan Regis. Pretty much, you know what she said, kind of mirrored what happened the first time our chief came into office. I had a chance to actually shake his hand and say, hey, sir, I'm here to support you. One of the main reasons for supporting him, he's a Marine, and I am a Marine. Marines stick together, no matter too thick and thin, right? Now right now I'm getting thick. He's getting thinner. But right now I'm here to support him. You know what? The first thing that really impressed me about our chief, he told me that, Steve, I said, sir, damn, I was impressed. He called me by my first name. He knows my first name. Steve, the first thing I'm going to do is going to get the department together. We're going to make sure that we're into the same sheet of music. And based on the testimony that was provided by people before me, it shows that he did his best. I mean, he's actually getting our department together. One of the first things that I noticed, and I can ask the chief that, one day he had a meeting at the police department, and he's got all of his staff, the high-ranking officers, lieutenants, and above. Say, Chief, this is like the National Guard, the command brief meeting, the CIB command and brief meeting that we have, informational brief we have at the guard. And he's using that. One of the things that he's using right now pretty much is he's getting our branches together, working together as a team. As I mentioned, as I can recall, leadership is the art of influencing people to accomplish a certain task. Our chief right now has accomplished that. He has influenced all of us to work together as a team. I'm not part of the brass. I'm not part of the lieutenant, the command staff that he's got, but I see a lot based on the testimony that's been provided today that he has gotten our department together to work as one, and that's what we need. And one of the things too is I remembered a lot of you guys kept mentioning that he loves to work out, right? I met the chief one time at the gym, and I asked him, sir, are you deploying? He said, yes, Steve, I'm deploying, and I'm the battalion XO. At that moment in time, ladies and gentlemen, I felt very confident that my son, which is scheduled to deploy with the Guam National Guard, that he will come home safe, knowing for a fact there's a Marine, a good officer, a good leader behind them as a battalion XO. And I asked him, sir, if I have a chance, I will take my son's place for that deployment. And you know what he told me? He said, Steve, don't worry, he'll be home. And he did bring my son home, and I really thank you for that, Chief. And I can't really forget what we discussed during the time. It's kind of a weird place, at the gym. He's getting ready to take a shower, and I say, Chief, at that time, it gave me the good, the confidence. And one more thing, I know they told me that, I don't speak that long because I have a brief, short memory. But one of the things that I also noticed that the chief has a vision. And one of the vision that I can recall, I was watching that when I was driving with you. Yeah. He mentioned that one of his visions to get us a home of our own, which is our headquarters. I'm going to take this opportunity to ask all of you, the senators, to support my chief and one part of his vision to give us our home. A Guam Police Department, their own headquarters, and the only time that will happen if you guys support him wholeheartedly, all 15 of you, in this confirmation to become a chief. When that happens, I can guarantee you he will be able to practice the leadership, that art of leadership, the leadership right, art to influence people. The people I'm talking about is you guys, to give us a headquarters that we can call our own. We can call it our home. I've been with the department for 24 years. I never seen a headquarters, and I'm gonna be retiring soon. And I hope that headquarters is gonna come into play. It's gonna come into fruition with the help, with your support, and confirming a chief to be our next chief of police. And lastly, if you guys notice that Guam Police Department is a paramilitary organization, and if you guys notice that 3 Marines have been the chief for the Guam Police Department, and he'll be the 3rd one with your support. And you can tell that he has the support of all our employees. You can tell by the numbers that we have here. You can tell by all the high-ranking officers that we have there is supporting him. And I can tell by the people that actually testifying, not as good as I am, supporting him for his confirmation. I'm humbly asking you guys to support my chief, to be the next Marine chief, to be the next Marine, to be the Guam Police Department Chief of Police, that will be able to deliver, they'll be able to get us together and to give us our home with your help, our own headquarters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Officer Aguon, for your service, not only in the Guam Police Department, but also your son and yourself in the National Guard. Mr. Chalfers?
Good afternoon, Senator Aguon and members of the committee. I'm Police Officer 3, Eugene C. Charfers. I've been with the police department for the past 17 years. I currently serve as the officer in charge for the domestic assault response team, and I'm up in TSM with an investigative unit. I submitted a written testimony on behalf of, to support Joseph I. Cruz for our chief, and I just want to touch on some highlights. One of the first things I noticed is that actually on May 22nd, when he first was appointed by Governor Calvo came out and he made this thing that Joseph Cruz's record speaks for itself. And I'm kind of like the person that, and I think all of you here would agree with me, that really a person's record or background is really determined about how they apply themselves. And based on a report card, if you will, that I'm going to give you as an employee of the department, Joe Cruz has really had a very outstanding report card in my books. First of all, on his first day, within hours after he gave his opening speech, he had no aircon in his office. He went straight to Tizen. He was wearing the same clothes he wore when he did his speech. He loosened his tie. He rolled up his sleeves. And he was in that office beginning the transition. He also implemented having mandatory command staff meetings every week, which showed the troops at the bottom, from my point of view down, that he was taking leadership from the top, showing the example from the top that he needs to get our department together. And as you can see today, this department is unified. I'm proud to say it. Finally, after all these years, we are unified as one. And I'm proud to say that. And it took this man to do it. And if that's the kind of characteristic and leadership that he has, then we need to support him. We need to confirm him. He needs to be our leader. Just within the first 30 days that he came in, he didn't make drastic changes. He made an assessment. He went out there. He spoke to every division. He spoke to every section. He listened to everybody, asking them, what is your input? What is your insight? He shared his vision with the department. And from there, he went ahead and he actually started developing committees. He appointed committees. He did a uniform committee. He did a general order committee. And our general orders are our standing policies and procedures. And I know that Senator Espadon, at one point in time during a hearing, during a budget hearing with the overtime, you have brought up the fact that we are way behind on our policies and procedures. Our overtime general order hasn't been updated since 1997. Within 30 days, he came in, he realized that there's so many policies and procedures that we're binded by that needs to be updated, and he's already made a start to get those things going. So the only thing that I can really say to sum all of this up is Guy Derecho Estinatauto. This person has a sense of direction. We need to move forward. The department is one. We're unified. Let's go to the next level, and let's start to move forward on the road and on the pavement that he's already, the foundation that he's already laid down for us to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Charfers. And gentlemen, thank you very much for your testimony this afternoon. If I can invite the following individuals, and please excuse me if by any chance I misspell your name or mispronounce your name. Sonny TC, Captain Castro, Michael Archangel, Cassiana Cruz, and Andrew Kitigua. Once again, if I can invite the following individuals: Sonny TC, Captain Castro, Michael Archangel, Cassiano Cruz, Andrew Kitigua, and one more individual, Mr. Ben Ferguson. Why don't we begin from my right, your left, and just identify yourself for the record, please, and provide your testimony. Thank you.
Hafa Senators. My name is Kashana Cruz, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my father, Joseph Cruz. One of the greatest lessons I've learned from my father is the value of strong work ethic. He taught my siblings and I that in order to achieve a goal, you need to be ready to put forth the greatest amount of effort needed to achieve it. My father comes from a traditional Chamorro household, which taught us the value of love and respect for one another. He has certainly imparted these values on us as well, to have respect for authority and to those around us. We have also learned the value of perseverance and gratitude. Growing up, I have seen firsthand the struggles that he and my mother endured as young parents, working full-time jobs and being full-time students. His commitment to education was the impetus to obtain his degrees despite any obstacles that stood in his way, and instilled in me the value of education. In doing so, he always remained grateful to everyone that supported him along the way. I've always known my father to be a driven and focused person, and have no doubt that he will apply this same drive and motivation to lead the Guam Police Department in a positive direction and effect the necessary changes to improve the welfare of the community and police officers. While confident in his abilities, he remains humble always and remembers to put his faith first. He accepts constructive criticism and uses feedback to improve his performance. He's taught me personally the importance of reliability by staying true to his word and offering unconditional and unwavering support. He's the type of person that not only is able to give instruction, but also lead by example. As a child, I remember him not just telling my brother to go out and do yard work, but he would go out there with him and help him finish. This is only a minor example that directly relates to his ideals of walking the walk, right alongside his brothers and sisters in blue. Despite being in numerous leadership positions, he would by no means hold anyone to a standard that he would not hold himself to. I firmly believe that my father encompasses all the qualities necessary to take on such an arduous role and can grow and nurture the department to become successful within the government of Guam and the island community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz.
Good afternoon, Senators.
I'm sorry, just for clarification purposes, you're the daughter of the nominee? Just because one of my colleagues inquired. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cruz.
Good afternoon, Senators. Buenas and half a day. I am Lieutenant Michael A. Archangel of the Guam Police Department, and I have been employed with the department for over 30 years. I am submitting this testimony in support of Acting Chief Cruz, and I wish to share my reasons for this. First, I have known Acting Chief Cruz since the early 1990s before he became a police officer with the Guam Police Department. He was a United States Force Reconnaissance Marine and was interested in joining the Guam Police Department. I was assigned to the Department's Special Enforcement Amphibious Section at the time, which was our department's Special Operations Arm, which conducted some operations similar to what he did as a Marine. So naturally, we had a few things in common and had a lot to talk about. We became good friends, and I soon learned one day that he was hired and joined our ranks. As a person, I can attest that Acting Chief Cruz has always presented himself as an intelligent and honorable man, due in large part to his upbringing as a child, his time in the Marine Corps Elite, and now as an officer in the Guam Police Department. He had always displayed good judgment, courtesy, and respect for those below and above him, and knowledge of his duties and responsibilities as an officer. After learning his duties as a patrolman, he decided to give police special operations a shot. After all, he is always a special operator. He made it through several weeks of intensive training and thus began a long tour of duty with Cs and later Special Weapons and Tactics. But as highly skilled as he was, He practiced humility like a religion and was always there to help those who needed it. Second, Acting Chief Cruz is a well-educated man who has managed to earn a baccalaureate degree while juggling his duties as a police officer, which is no easy feat. Hard work and sacrifice is not new to him. He had also earned a commission in the United States Army National Guard as a second lieutenant. As luck would have it, he found a new adventure in his life and left GPD to work full-time as a National Guardsman. While there, he led and managed soldiers through many deployments in peacetime and also in the time of war. As if his schedule were not busy enough, he still managed to continue his education, ultimately earning a master's degree. Rising to the rank of major and becoming a battalion executive officer rounds out his career in the military. No doubt Acting Chief Cruz is a man who has learned from the bottom and straight to the top. He has the skills to lead, and anyone who can lead men into battle and bring that back safely surely has my vote of confidence. And lastly, I have seen many chiefs come and go in my many years of service. I can honestly say that we have had struggles with a few at the helm. But in the short time that Acting Chief Cruz has been serving, I and many others have seen the department being led in the right direction. I have heard more coming from him in the short time he has been here than his predecessor had done in 5 years. He allows his staff officers to assist him in problem solving and is amenable to new ideas and approaches. Acting Chief Cruz has the leadership qualities necessary to steer this department in the direction it needs to be on, and I have absolute faith in him to carry out his duties and responsibilities as Chief of Police. I humbly ask for your support in confirming him and allowing our department to move forward. It is my pleasure to submit this testimony, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Archangel, for your testimony this afternoon. Captain Castro?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I'm Captain Castro from the Guam Police Department. I'm here to offer my supportive testimony for Acting Chief Joe Cruz. As a member of the Guam Police Department for close to 30 years, I've come to witness that the department is oftentimes the subject of controversy and scrutiny as a result of leadership and our officer conduct. This is obviously based upon the many demands set upon the department, as we are the forefront of public safety and security. The expectations are great, and to service the community is an enormous task, considering limited finances and resources. Collectively, this places a strain on each member of our organization who diligently strives to meet the needs of our community. More specifically, the leader of this organization must be able to ensure that those needs are met by providing the necessary tools and resources for each member to carry out his or her duties. Unlike any other agency within the government, it takes a committed individual to address, confront, and manage issues affecting the Guam Police Department. A leader who has the strength and tenacity to lead and make sound decisions in the best interest of the department and the community. Arguably, previous chiefs of police made every effort to achieve the goals and objectives of the department, with some success and of course some failures. However, they, in their tenure, unfortunately withstood the barrage of criticism, both internally and externally, but they continued to strive for a safer community. Despite the leadership in place, regrettably, the entire organization becomes divided, more so at the command level, where criticism is commonplace as opposed to unity for resolution. Interestingly enough, upon the retirement of the former Chief of Police, the Honorable Governor and Lieutenant Governor of Guam meticulously sought after a viable candidate to immediately assume the helm of the Guam Police Department. Instantaneously, Joseph I. Cruz was selected to act in the capacity of the Chief of Police, and began his tour of duty on May 23, 2015. Without delay, Acting Chief of Police Cruz made an immediate impact to the entire organization by availing himself to each member to understand their roles and profess his support for their commitment. He has undoubtedly communicated his expectations and desires to achieve a more cohesive department with respect to accountability, dedication, and most especially teamwork. In this short period, Acting Chief of Police Cruz has rejuvenated our organization by instilling and demonstrating the qualities of a leader. One who is capable of achieving success, which is refreshing. His very presence commands respect at every level. He has made huge strides in understanding the dynamics of the department and realizing a great number of issues were ongoing that required his immediate attention. Unfortunately, he inherited the current dilemma surrounding the forensic lab, the evidence and control section, recent oversight hearings, and pending personnel matters. Despite these concerns, he seems enthusiastic, and to no surprise, he has addressed each issue accordingly. In addition, he had to prepare for the FY16 budget hearings, which in itself is an arduous task, more so from the perspective of having to digest and understand the intricacies of the organization within a few weeks' time. This is a tremendous display of commitment that is not often demonstrated. As stated earlier, he sets the example of being accountable and further exemplifies his desire to lead this organization. More recently, the department has suffered tragedies with the loss of 3 police officers, 2 of which were due to health-related issues and 1 unforeseen incident. Imagine the emotional and consequential effects to the family of these fallen officers and to the entire department. These were heart-wrenching issues that Acting Chief of Police Cruz was confronted with in just 2 months' time. One can only envision what the future holds for the department and its personnel, but under the guidance and leadership of Acting Chief of Police Cruz, I firmly believe the department, and most especially the community, will thrive. In essence, the community will once again realize that each member of the Guam Police Department is committed to work together, hand in hand, for a safer Guam. As the department moves forward, there's now a sense of stability with new leadership, and thus far the atmosphere and work environment appear to be positive. Acting Chief of Police Cruz has without a doubt projected his aspirations to hold a leadership role for the Guam Police Department as the Chief of Police. I am more than confident in his abilities as a leader, coupled with his education and experience, that he will lead the department in the right direction. I ask each member of this astute 33rd Guam legislature to please consider and confirm the appointment of Joseph I. Cruz as the Chief of Police of the Guam Police Department. Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to provide testimony during this confirmation hearing. I want to personally thank Joe for taking this shot at making our department a better place to be, and for the community. And I thank you for that, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Castro, for your testimony this afternoon. Lieutenant Kirigua.
My name is Lieutenant Andrew Kirigua. Honorable Senators, Hafaday, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to submit testimony in support of Acting Chief Joseph I. Cruz, confirmation as the Chief of the Guam Police Department. As an officer in the Guam Police Department, currently assigned to the Administration Division and formerly assigned to the Support Division, all my work as a staff officer has been focused on the business of providing. Assigned to the GPD Services Bureau for over 5 years, I have had the exceptional opportunity to participate in the complex work of providing for the commanders and police officers on the line, for 3 former chiefs of police and now Acting Chief Cruz. I worked with Acting Chief Cruz in 1995 as we were both assigned to the Aguon precinct as patrolmen for a short time. He was later reassigned to GPD Special Operations Unit, which was expected of someone with his relevant military background. Acting Chief Cruz was promoted ahead of most of his peers in the late 1990s in a cohort of officers who were required to fulfill the superior roles vacated by senior ranking officers during the early retirement opportunity offered by the government in the year 2000. Acting Chief Cruz returned to GPD in May, brought a shift in critical personnel and an immediate assessment of the administration of the department. As the committee is well aware, the recent challenges facing the Guam Police Department at the media forefront has been the functional capability of our Forensic Science Division and the evidence and property
that they are charged to process and safeguard. We are also faced with other issues, such as the support of an adequate number of personnel, essential equipment, and suitable technology applications, to name a few. These are challenges that are consistent with those faced by other public safety agencies as well. What is distinct about the Guam Police Department is the manner in which a chief will provide for and empower commanders and police officers on the line to protect and serve over 160,000 people and over 10,000 tourists on Guam every day. In the short time Acting Chief Cruz has led the Guam Police Department, he has taken ownership of these major challenges and re-empowered commanders and staff officers like myself to advise and implement solutions. Most importantly, Acting Chief Cruz has made it a point to reach out to all department employees, both sworn and civilian personnel, from the highest ranking officer to the lowest, and field their concerns face to face. In addressing these concerns, personnel in the Administration Division have re-examined the process of budgeting, recruitment, procurement, training, and grant program management. Essentially, we've redistributed the services we provide in these areas based on a priority of objectives received from the Office of the Acting Chief of Police, and as a result, I am confident that we can expect to see a more robust department in the future. In this regard, I ask that you vote to confirm Acting Chief Cruz as the next Chief of the Guam Police Department. Thank you again for allowing me to submit my testimony.
Thank you, Lieutenant Kirigua, for your testimony this afternoon. Mr. Ferguson?
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Ben Ferguson. I'm the General Manager of Pacific Islands Club. I've known Joe Cruz for 20 years. Like Lee, I didn't come here with prepared remarks. But I got to tell you, after sitting here and listening to all of this testimony, I've got one thing to say. Joe, you're an pretty impressive dude. Gotta say. But I knew that all along. Having known Joe for 20 years, I've known what an impressive gentleman this guy is. And I'm actually very pleased to be here in front of you speaking from the perspective of those that work in the hospitality industry. Obviously, the hospitality industry as Guam's economic engine is near and dear to all of our hearts. And it really made me feel tremendously happy when I heard that Joe had been nominated to be Chief of Police. I can think of no one better to be Chief of Police for Guam. I can think of no one better to ensure that our visitors stay safe on Guam, and that our industry that is so near and dear to our hearts and so vital to everybody's economic interest on the island is in good hands. At PIC, we have over 700 employees. And when we hire employees, we hire them in one of two ways. Typically, in the latter of these two ways, we hire people either experientially or attitudinally. And experiential hiring obviously is hiring one based on all of their years of experience and all of the things that they've done to support the job that they're applying for. Attitudinal hiring, on the other hand, is based on the feeling that you get when you speak with someone, and that feeling that they will do the job that you are interviewing them for. And when I look at Joe Cruz, I can tell you that not only does this guy have tremendous experience, but most importantly, I think attitudinally, he's got what it takes to do the job. And so, in that regard, I sincerely am proud to support Joe's nomination for Chief of Police, and speaking on behalf of PIC, and I think speaking on behalf of PHR Micronesia, we all fully support Joe's nomination. So again, thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ferguson, for your testimony this afternoon, and to everyone on the panel, thank you again for your testimony. If I can invite you're dismissed. The following individuals: Maggie Napoti, Rosemary Kidagua Ferguson, Robert Perron, Steve Ignacio, Kim Santos, and Ray Quintaniza. So if there's anyone else in the audience who would like to provide oral testimony this afternoon, I'd encourage you to sign up so that in fact we can recognize you. Once again, if I can invite the following individuals: Maggie Napoti, Rosemary Kidagua Ferguson, Robert Perron, Steve Ignacio, Kim Santos, and Ray Quintiniza. And once again, if we can initiate or begin from my right, your left, and identify
Company
yourself for the
senators.
record. Step right. We have one more. Captain Santos. Okay, please proceed. Thank you.
Day Senators. I'm Maggie Napty. I'm a Police Officer 1 with the Guam Police Department. I've known Joe Cruz for many years now. His achievements thus far in his professional and educational career are only small examples of his continuous pursuit of success. As acting Chief of Police, he has already begun to demonstrate his capabilities, knowledge, and skills he brings with him in all that he does. The most important body he needs to earn trust from is the community, which he has already begun to do by revitalizing our community policing concept. He has taught me that the community is instrumental in police work and that the community is our greatest asset that we need to protect and endlessly serve. I ask you all to greatly consider confirming Joe Cruz as Chief of Police. I have faith and trust in him that he will take this department into the direction it needs to go by making changes where necessary and evolving the police department into what it needs to become to keep up with our changing society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Napty, for your testimony this afternoon. Please.
Day Senators. My name is Rosemary Kittigoat Ferguson, and I am just one of the many cousins of Joe Cruz. And I, too, thank you for this opportunity to share the one thing that I know Joe Cruz has, and that is a sense of responsibility. Now, I've been here since the beginning, and many have spoke of Joe Cruz as the person today. I'd like to share Joe Cruz as a young boy, a teenager. Thank you. When we were teenagers, my mother taught Joe and I, along with our many cousins, the responsibility of caring for someone. We had a tremendous responsibility in caring for the needs of our grandmother. She was a bedridden patient, but one who was also comatose for 7 years. Joe was raised by my grandmother. Our grandmother lived with us and needed constant care for all her needs. She depended on us for her safety, but also for her livelihood. For example, we were given the task of feeding and giving Grandma water through her feeding tube on a daily basis, changing and cleaning her suction machine, which she depended on, and assisting in her daily hygiene regimen, which was vigorous. As you can imagine, there are many things involved in caring for a patient such as she. And yes, we did it all. But aside from that, Joe also maintained a high grade point average in school, joined sports both in and out of school, assisted father as being an altar server at church, and has joined many church activities as well. One of the things that we were also had to do was to ensure that Grandma's bedroom was cleaner than the hospital room. And that was a comment that was made because it was indeed cleaner than a hospital room. And that comment was made by the many, many medical personnel who came to visit us on a regular basis. While this testimony is not meant to go down memory lane, it is meant to show you that Joe Cruz, the man today, was Joe Cruz built a long time ago. Our grandmother, passed away in 1985. She was the foundation, and she is the one why Joe Cruz is the man today. Joe Cruz is definitely, at the time, a young person, and he had managed to care for one person. He is definitely capable of caring for the many men and women in the Guam Police Department. And I'm confident in his ability to serve this community in a greater capacity. And thank you to Zeus Mossy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ferguson, for your testimony. Steve?
Good afternoon, Chairman Aguon and senators of this committee. I am Captain Steve Ignacio, and I've been employed with the Guam Police Department for 28 years. I've provided written testimony, and in summary, I'm here to testify in support of the nomination and confirmation of Joseph I. Cruz as our next Chief of Police. I think one of the more common themes throughout the testimony provided earlier throughout the command staff is that he's able to bring us together. We've had more regular meetings, and we're able to voice our concerns and bring about changes that we need for our department in a positive direction. And it's nice and refreshing that the command staff officers, such as myself, meet on a more regular basis. Like some of them have testified, we've become more unified, we've become more cohesive, and I think that's the type of leadership that we need in our department in light of the many challenges that we're faced. I've always wondered, the confirmation for the Chief of Police is a very important confirmation, and you see it in the community. You see with the many people that show up to come out and hear and listen and provide their input. So as a staff officer for the Guam Police Department, I'm here to testify in support of, and I urge the legislature to please confirm Chief Cruz as our next Chief of Police. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain Ignacio. Appreciate it. Captain Kim.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Senators. Hafaday, how are you today? I've written my sentiments, and if I may, I'd like to read them. Okay. Since he has taken the helm at the Guam Police Department on May 23rd, 2015, Acting Chief Cruz has earned my utmost respect. Therefore, I am here to speak in support of his confirmation for the position of Chief of Police. It is a known fact that GPD has been divided for a number of years. It's been made public over and over in discussions, in the media, and so forth. In light of this, Chief Cruz's first call to action was to meet with every member of the Guam Police Department. And during these meetings, Chief Cruz shared the following: his leadership philosophy, and that is that collaboration and teamwork are important in any organization, most especially a police organization, and that it is his intention to foster unity within GPD. He stressed that leadership is a privilege and an honor, and that along with it comes a great responsibility, and that with that responsibility comes accountability. It is his hope to utilize each officer's strengths to counter the other's weaknesses, to make this organization be the best that it can be, to better serve the community. Acting Chief Cruz emphasized that he will lead by example, but that he will also empower his management team so as not to marginalize any of them, again stressing collaboration and teamwork. Thus far, he has shown that he gets buy-in from his management team, who are a direct representation from their troops out on the field. During these meetings, Acting Cruz also shared some of his core values. He stressed professionalism, integrity, duty, respect, honor, courage, and commitment. And by the way, I am a good note taker because most of these things that I share with you are from notes taken during those meetings. His mission statement reads as follows: that the Guam Police Department will continue to grow, adapt, and evolve as we provide the highest level of service and protection to the residents and visitors of our island community. I would like to attest to Chief Cruz's ability to lead and to hold true to his leadership philosophy, core values, and mission statement. He has displayed nothing but the utmost professionalism in the performance of his leadership thus far. He has shown that he is skilled in choosing the right path, assessing his options, weighing priorities, and consulting advisors. Most importantly, Chief Cruz has a strength of character to make objective decisions and has not hedged any of these decisions based on popular opinion, which is oftentimes a factor. I have faith that Chief Cruz has the wherewithal to face the many challenges that it will take to get the Guam Police Department back in shape. He has a command presence, courage, ingenuity, and fortitude to get us through tough spots and heavy fire. Chief Cruz chose to take the position of Chief of Police knowing that his honor and integrity may be questioned. The blows of adversity can be the best chances for improvement. And I'd like to also share with you that some of my observations of Chief Cruz are that he's a great listener, and he listens and gives feedback. He has a strong command presence. He values diversity. He delegates effectively. He's a problem solver. He motivates others, and If there's anything I'd like to share with you in ending my testimony is that, Zig Ziglar said he says there are two definitions for fear. The first one is forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. And I believe Acting Chief Cruz has chosen the latter. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Santos, for your testimony this afternoon. Officer Kirua.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Honorable Senators. My name is Ray Quintaniza, Police Officer 3. I've been with the department a little bit over 22 years. I'm proud to say that I'm also a cyclemate of Joe Cruz. He was my class commander, and proud to have served with him then. And I'm proud for his opportunity to step up and take the helm. I wasn't going to testify today, but this letter that I received earlier this afternoon kind of prompted me to come out here and speak on his behalf. I think J.I. Cruz is a man of integrity and honor, and I think Ben, Titan is his name, basically talks about integrity. I think I'm challenging Ben Titan to step up and tell us what he has to say rather than write it and send it to the legislature. I'm not going to say much more. I think Joe Cruz is the man for the department now. And Joe, welcome aboard. I believe you'll be confirmed.
Thank you, Officer Quintanilla. And to everyone on the panel, thank you for your testimony this afternoon. If I can invite, ladies and gentlemen, please, in the audience, if I can invite Mr. Lopez, Joey Lopez, and Mr. Bob Perron. If you have any intention of providing testimony, no? Okay. If there's anyone else in the audience, with the exception of the spouse and the daughter of the nominee, I would like to encourage you to please join us up front. Otherwise, we're going to proceed and continue on with the testimonies. Chief, we have Joey Lopez, and then we'll call up your Lynette. Mr. Lopez, just identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Excuse me. Mr. Perron just wanted to sign in favor of, but he
Yes.
had no intention of.
I already acknowledged that.
Okay,
Thank you.
got it.
Thank you.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Man, they all left
All
me.
right, Joey.
That's okay. I'm here for a good reason. Huffaday Senator. My glasses are getting old. Senator Frank Aguon, Chairman of this committee, and fellow senators of the 33rd Guam Legislature. It's with great pleasure I'm afforded the opportunity to testify in front of yourselves and fellow senators of the 33rd Guam Legislature. I have had the opportunity in getting to know Joe over the last year through friends. This man has impressed me with his knowledge and strength in education, experience, and his positive outlook on life in general. We have one thing in common. We both like the same coffee drink at Java Junction. Whenever I see Joe, he's always neat and well-dressed and extremely professional. As we all know, the Guam Police Department has experienced very tough and tragic challenges over the years. In my opinion, Joe has the mental and physical strength to get the department back on track. I ask all of you to please support him and all his members and that make up the Guam Police Department by giving them budgetary funding and resources they need to move this department forward. We need many men and women in blue patrolling our streets 24/7. In time of need, what do? We always call a police officer by dialing 911. So they need help. Please, if you can help them, it's in your duty as our senators to help him, not through his confirmation, but help the Guam Police Department by giving them their budgets that they need to do their jobs. Guam is such a beautiful island that I've called home with my family for the past 26 years. Let's not allow criminals to destroy it right under our noses through drugs, through family violence, through theft, and other things. Please support Joe through a healthy budget and allow him to do his job and get tough on crime. I can say many more things I've learned about him in such a short period of time. However, his professional record speaks for himself. Senators, I ask that all of you please afford Joseph I. Cruz the opportunity to become our next Chief of Police and lead the Guam Police Department in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lopez, for your testimony this afternoon. As we conclude the presentations, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Mrs. Cruz and your daughter, Ella Marie Cepeda. And Mr. Cruz, if you would like to join them, and then we will dismiss the two individuals, and then you provide your testimony.
Hafaday Senator and committee members, I come before you today to offer testimony on behalf of my husband, Mr. Joseph I. Cruz. My husband is a man who I've known for several years. I knew him when he was a police officer, and I have known him as a soldier in the United States Army. I have always known him to always been a person who is focused, determined, strong-willed, intelligent, passionate, and displayed the characteristics of a strong leader. Since my husband and I first started dating years ago, I've always admired his passion for his profession, either as a soldier or as the acting chief of police. As a professional, he is always focused on first accomplishing his mission, and second, taking care of those under his charge. As a father, he is always taking care of his responsibilities to our children, our family, and our home. As a husband, he has always been my best friend and confidant. I mention all these roles that my husband has assumed because I wish to highlight his ability to assume each of those roles with staying focused to each while meeting all his requirements. He is the most dedicated and focused individual that I know. Should this committee find it in their capacity to confirm him, I assure you that he will serve the Guam Police Department and the people of Guam well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Cruz. Young Ms. Cepeda, please identify yourself for the record and present your testimony.
Hi, my name is Ella Cepeda, and I am 8 years old. I am from the village of Junya. Senator Aguon and committee members, buenas and half a day. My name is Ella Marie Cepeda. I am 8 years old. I am from the village of Junya, and I am the proud daughter of the acting chief of police, Mr. Joseph I. Cruz. I come before you today to provide you with my thoughts about the man who I call Dad. My dad came into my life when I was only 2 years old. From the moment I met him, we became best friends and someone who I long to call Dad. My dad is a very proud but yet humble human being. My dad is more than just my father figure, for anyone can be a father, but it takes someone very special to be a dad. My dad is also my teacher, my provider, my protector, my role model, someone who teaches me right from wrong, and my hero. Since my dad has come into my life, he has always been there to support everything that I do. He and my mom work very hard to support every one of my school functions and all the other activities that I do. My dad has always taught me the value of hard work and education. My dad has always told me that nothing in life is free, and that if you want something, you have to work hard for it. He has also taught me that hard work alone will only get you so far in life. He once told me that in life, there is more that we don't know than what we do know, and for that reason, we must always work hard to educate ourselves. As a man who believes in some very basic but important values of life, he has taught me the importance of courtesy, respect, discipline, and honesty. In our house, we are always courteous to each other, we respect each other, we always do as we are told, and we always tell the truth. My dad brings to the Guam Police Department the same type of principles that he has taught me and my brothers and sisters. Because of all that he has learned in his jobs and in school, my dad has become a very strong leader. Although I do not know anything about being a policeman, what I do know is that my dad has always taken care of those who work for him. I do know that he takes care of his people the same way he takes care of me. Although there's still so much that I have to learn about in life, what I do know is that no matter what it is that my dad decides to do, he always does his best. My dad was a very good soldier, and I am sure that he will be a good chief of police as well. Just as my dad loves our family and me, he also loves this island that we call home. My mom told me that my dad was a policeman once before, and then he became a soldier here on Guam. And now he is the acting chief of police. Even for someone as young as me, I understand that my dad loves serving people, especially the people of Guam. Although I don't know anything about being a policeman and I don't know anything about being a senator, I do know that my dad works very hard. He is always courteous, he is respectful, he is honest, and most especially, he listens to people and he cares about people. Daddy, you are as smart as Iron Man, as strong as the Hulk, as fast as Superman, as brave as Batman, as handsome as The Rock and G.I. Joe. You are my favorite superhero. I love you, Daddy. Senators, thank you for this chance to tell you about my dad, and thank you to everyone here today. This is what my dad represents.
You want to show the audience, Ella Marie? Ella Marie, thank you for your testimony this afternoon. I think you did a fantastic job. Great job. And Ms. Cruz, Chief or nominee, we still have one other individual. He's one of your predecessors that would like to come up front.
Oh, absolutely.
Chief Frankie Shizaki.
Senators, Mr. Chair, Senators, it's not often I come here, and I come here to support Joe. I'm impressed with him. I don't know him as well as some of the others have eloquently spoken about him, but I've spent some time with him since his appointment, and I'm impressed with the way he's proceeding and the way he's processing his thoughts and the way he's doing his research and the way he is trying to establish a ownership amongst all the stakeholders in our island. And so I can't see anything wrong that he's doing. And to repeat his qualifications, experience, and muscle building accomplishments would be mere redundancy. So I don't want to do that. So I'm just here to say I support him, and I'm available at his request for any assistance. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Senator and Chief Ishizaki, for your testimony this afternoon. Chief nominee, Mr. Cruz, please proceed.
Senator Aguon and committee members, buenas and hafade. Thank you for this opportunity to provide my testimony regarding the confirmation of my appointment as the Chief of Police for the Guam Police Department. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all those present here. From the Guam Police Department, from the other government of Guam agencies, from the private work sector, the community in general, along with my friends and family who are here this afternoon to show their support for me and for my confirmation as the Chief of Police. I come before you this afternoon with my immediate family, my wife of 4 years, Lynette, and our 4 children who are here on island, Kashana, Kristen, Ethan, Ella Marie, along with my extended family, as we make ourselves available to the issues, questions, or concerns regarding the candidacy for my appointment. As I start my testimony, it is important for me to briefly outline who I am. I am the proud but humble man born to Francisco A. and Alvia I. Cruz. I'm originally from Manila, but I am now from the village of Jonia, and I am married to the former Lynette Marie Cepeda, and our blended family consists of 7 wonderful children. I'm the graduate of the Father Dueñas Memorial High School, the University of Guam, where I received my bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in public administration. Currently, I am enrolled in a doctoral program whereby I'm pursuing a PhD in public policy and administration with a specialization in criminal justice with Walden University in Minneapolis, Minnesota. My professional career began with service in the United States Marine Corps, where I served as an infantry and reconnaissance Marine from 1985 to 1993. After 8 years of loyal and faithful service to the Marine Corps, I joined the Guam Police Department and served as a police officer from 1993 to 2003. In my tenure as a police officer, I have served as a patrol officer, a tactical team member, an internal affairs investigator, and a patrol field supervisor. In 2001, I joined the Guam Army National Guard as a citizen soldier and pursued a career as a commissioned officer. In 2003, I left the Guam Police Department and went back on active duty with the Guam Army National Guard as a member of the Active Guard Reserve AGR program. After almost 22 years of combined military service, I retired from the Guam Army National Guard on March 1st, 2015. Finally, on May 23rd, 2015, I was appointed by the Governor of Guam, the Honorable Eddie Baza Calvo, to be the Acting Chief of Police for the Guam Police Department. Prior to my appointment to this position, I asked myself, why would I consider assuming the role as the Chief of Police? And why would I agree to take on such an arduous task when the Guam Police Department is at a point in its history whereby it is facing some very difficult times that are afflicted with very critical issues? While the current administration has worked diligently to increase the funding appropriated to the department based on Guam law and a study conducted by the Department of Interior in 2012, the department is still undermanned. Much improvement needs to be conducted to address the issues of vehicles, both marked and unmarked. The department must acquire more equipment and supplies, and it must deal with spacing and improve its facilities, just to name a few. With each and every time that I contemplated those questions, I always ended up telling myself that by assuming the role as the Chief of Police, this would be my opportunity to effect positive social change for the people of Guam and for the Guam Police Department. And I fervently intend to make those changes for the department and for our island community. With this appointment, I am greatly honored and deeply humbled to serve the people in that capacity. I firmly believe that with my military and law enforcement experience, coupled with the education that I've received and continue to pursue, I bring a strong sense of leadership, new revitalized perspectives, and a strong sense of commitment to the Guam Police Department and our people. The leadership that I bring is one that has been forged and tested time and time again, both in peacetime and in combat. As I led members in units as small as 6-man teams up to a battalion of almost 600 assigned soldiers. That kind of leadership is required of a person who is knowledgeable, confident, passionate, empathetic, and focused. I possess those qualities as a leader, and my leadership is grounded in principles that include loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. I believe that that kind of leadership is crucial to leading an organization as such as the Guam Police Department. As the Acting Chief of Police, my leadership philosophies are grounded in the idea that leadership is a privilege and an honor, but is also a tremendous responsibility. My philosophy of leadership is one of collaboration and teamwork within which members of a team can utilize one another's strengths to counter individual weaknesses. I truly believe that the greatest leaders know their limitations and are adept at leveraging their strengths and the strengths of others to compensate. As a leader, I am one who listens well, who can effectively motivate and inspire, and provides a team with thoughtful vision and strategic direction. I am a leader who leads by example and empowers my followers to accomplish their mission. I work to instill those core values that include professionalism, respect, integrity, dedication, and excellence in those whom I lead. As a leader, I strive to understand the needs of those whom I lead, and I work thoughtfully to consider my actions and the impact that those actions have on those individuals as well. In my 64 days at the helm as the acting chief of police, I have reached out to leaders in the community such as the village mayors and the mayor's council. I have met with several of the council generals. I have canvassed the streets in our village. I have met with private citizens at town hall meetings. I have met with leaders in the private sector because I wanted to see firsthand what their issues and concerns are, to address those issues and concerns, to figure out how the Guam Police Department can better serve their needs, and to help foster a better relationship between the community and the Guam Police Department as we serve and protect our people and keep the community safe. In talking with our people, I have determined that their biggest concern is their safety and the safety of the public in general. By that, they want to see an increase in police presence with more police officers out on the streets and in our villages. They want to see an increase in manpower. They want to see an increase in the equipment made available to our officers. I have assured them that as the acting chief, I would address their concerns and that it is my mission and the mission of the Guam Police Department to ensure their safety. In my short tenure thus far, the collaboration that the Guam Police Department has done with our community, either through the Neighborhood Watch Program, which is an initiative that has been energized by Lieutenant Governor Ray Tenorio, or Mission Guardian Angel, which is an initiative championed by Governor Eddie Baza Calvo, or the department's efforts to work with the Island Beautification Task Force to curtail graffiti in our community, we have seen a positive reaction from the community, which is a sign of more things to come in the future. With that said, my vision for the Guam Police Department is that this department will continue to grow, adapt, and evolve as it provides the highest level of service and protection to the residents and visitors of our island community. By accomplishing this vision, I am confident that the Guam Police Department will achieve and surpass its goals by providing its officers and employees with the knowledge, tools, and opportunities to meet and exceed all present and future needs within our island, the law and the scope of law enforcement services. As the chief, working with the entire department, we will work in cooperation with our island community to proactively identify and address the areas of needed improvement, to continually provide the level of service and safety deserved by our island, our residents, and our visitors. With that vision in mind, I have established some short-term and long-term goals for the Guam Police Department. My short-term goals include, first, one that I've already accomplished with the establishment of a command team that consists of myself, the police commander, Colonel Maurice Sayama, the police sergeant major, Sergeant 2 Randy Aguon, and the staff assistant to the chief of police, Lieutenant Paul Sayama. The formulation of those senior leaders in the department shows a unification at the highest level, for without it, we will be challenged to have any unity in the department at all. Second is the realignment of certain units within the department to streamline operations in order to increase accountability and efficiency, thereby reducing costs and reallocating resources to further enhance public safety. Third is to complete the implementation of several committees in the department, such as a General Orders Committee, a Uniform Committee, a Vehicle Committee, and a bulletproof vest committee so that we can relook how we conduct our operations in order to provide the highest level of protection that I had referenced in my earlier vision statement. Fourth is to implement a physical fitness program that meets the standards outlined in the police officer standardized training or post commission for the for the certification of police officers. I believe that with that program and a program that addresses the physical and mental well-being of our officers will pay dividend to our officers overall. Fifth is to completely resource the 7th police officer training cycle that will begin before the end of this fiscal year, so that these candidates can attend and complete their training to further increase our presence in the community. And sixth is to work with the Government of Guam agencies such as the Bureau of Budget and Management Research and the Department of Administration to take a look at the current Budget Act in order to reallocate fiscal resources so that we can repair and properly maintain our current fleet of vehicles, which again would further enhance our presence in the community. Transitioning to my long-term goals. My long-term goals include, in FY 2016, I intend to promote the force from Police Officer 1 up through Sergeant 1. The amount of positions available is subject to the availability of funding. However, any upward mobility will serve the department well, as it will allow our officers to mature professionally and definitely increase morale. With the help of this legislative body and Bill 78-33 introduced by Senator Brant McCready, should this bill be passed into law and positions be funded every year, I intend to recruit up to 40 new police officer trainees per fiscal year over the next 5 years, so that again we can continue to grow our uniform force. By way of the OVIS fee, as codified in Public Law 32-205 and the Compact Impact Grant, it is my intent to increase our new vehicle fleet of both marked and unmarked vehicles, again to further increase our presence in the community. In FY 2017, through the collaborative efforts of other GovGuam agencies, I intend to start working on identifying funding sources in order to begin the project of designing and eventually constructing a police headquarters that will house the entire department minus our 4 precincts and the Forensic Science Division. In FY 2018, with the implementation of the police officer standardized training legislation passed in December of 2014, it is my intent to raise the standards in the Guam Police Department to a level whereby we achieve accreditation from the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, also known as CALEA, so that we may be recognized as a professional law enforcement entity. This list of short and long-term goals is not all-inclusive, and they may not all be accomplished in the order that I have outlined. However, they serve to lay the foundation for the future of the Guam Police Department, to be passed on to future senior leaders as they work to continue to lead this department in a positive direction. As I continue to work with my staff and commanders, other goals will be established and we will work diligently to accomplish those goals. It is my intent that with the accomplishment of these goals that we will improve morale, camaraderie, and esprit de corps of the entire force. In turn, as I've indicated in my vision statement, this will allow us to grow, adapt, and evolve so that we may provide the highest level of service and protection to the residents, to our residents, and the visitors of our island. In closing, I would like to thank Governor Eddie Baza Calvo and Lieutenant Governor Raymond S. Tenorio for their confidence in me. I would like to thank this committee for the opportunity to come before you and provide my testimony regarding my confirmation. To all those who are here this afternoon, either to show support or provide testimony, thank you all for your courage to be heard and to be part of this democratic process. To my family, both immediate and extended, thank you all for your support, past and present. Words cannot express the amount of gratitude that I have for all that you have done and continue to do to support me. I love you all with all my heart, soul, mind, and body. And finally, to the men and women of the Guam Police Department, thank you all for all your hard work, your dedication to duty, and all that you do to serve and protect the people of Guam. May God bless each and every one of you. May God bless America, and may God bless Guam. At this point, Senators, I'm subject to any questions that you may have of me. Sizus Masi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cruz, for your testimony this afternoon. Before I open up the panel for questions, if I can please dismiss Ms. Cruz and Elizabeth. Thank you. Mr. Acting Chief, just as a general comment, I think you're very familiar with the entire process in terms of why it's taken us a couple months to get where we're at today. And my commitment to you as well as to the people of Guam has always been to make sure that we conduct a thorough compliance with the law and ensure that we get your nomination on the floor for consideration by all the members of the legislature. Right now, we are anticipated to go into session, if not the week of the 10th of August, and my commitment is to ensure that your nomination is placed on that particular agenda. Secondly, the committee will continue to receive testimonies from the public, written testimonies from the public subsequent to this particular date for the next 9 days through August 7th. And we'll continue to keep that open so that, in fact, any additional testimonies that the community members would like to provide to the committee so that we can include it in the committee report certainly is going to be incorporated into the committee report.
Yes, sir.
Let me just make a general comment, Mr. Cruz. As a nominee, first of all, I want to recognize the governor for his nomination. I think that when you take a look at the total person that's before us, you're looking at an individual who not only served the military, was not only a member of the Guam Police Department in the past, but certainly has served in a number of capacities, and with some of the family members bringing statements about the additional activities that you have been involved in, whether it be church or whether it be community, certainly bodes very well for your nomination. I want to say a couple of things. Empowering your officers and your workforce. That is very meaningful, at least as it applies to the testimony that has been provided by the officers who were able to provide testimony this afternoon. So I certainly have a very strong appreciation for that in terms of being able to allow your officers to carry out the responsibility and to bear the burden and the challenge, which ultimately is on your shoulder, but to bear that responsibility in terms of ensuring the safety of our community. The other aspect is community policing. I like your short-term goals. I appreciate your long-term goals, but I most especially appreciate what you have done in the last 64 days of your tenure. It comes back to community policing, making sure that we increase the level of presence of our police officers out there in the community, making sure that there's that contact and that partnership, and that our people are able to recognize and to reach out to their law enforcement community, albeit in this case to the police officers in the field, and feel confident that things will be addressed as the services are needed. So I leave with those general comments, only because as the chair, it's my job to ensure a fair and impartial presentation in terms of your nomination.
Yes, sir.
We received a tremendous amount of very positive and reinforcing statements from you and from members of the community. In conjunction with that, there's one component that remains pending aside from the written testimony and the verbal testimony today, and I alluded to that. By the 30th of July, we will have the general investigation concluded, and then we'll proceed with sharing that information with the members of the committee and also with the general public, and then presenting your nomination to the floor so that the senators will be able to consider it during the week of the 10th, which I anticipate that's when we're going to be going into session. So that is the commitment of the chair, and we will certainly work with that timeline. And let me close with this as an opening statement. The working relationship that your office has provided the chair in this committee, and also being responsive to a number of senators, is certainly appreciated, and I encourage you to continue to maintain that working relationship, because that's the only way we're going to help you realize your short-term goals as well as your long-term goals in ensuring the safety of our people. So thank you very much for your testimony this afternoon, and I look forward to the eventual voting on your nomination to serve as Chief of Police.
Yes, sir.
The Vice Chair, Senator Abbott, you have any questions?
I have several questions, but because there's a number of us here, they probably would also have questions, and I want to make sure that everybody has sufficient time. But the one question that I have is, there's been much said about your accomplishments, your attributes, your qualities, and they're all very positive. And so when I first received documentation that you were nominated, I decided to kind of take a look at your background and really what this Joe Cruz is all about. So I requested for copies of your officer evaluation reports for the last 5 years, I think it was, and I received them. And it was very clear from those officer evaluation reports that you were certainly a rising star. Everything, all your reports, evaluations were maxed out and all. And then from the rank of lieutenant up to when you got promoted to major. And you, at the grade of major, you were the executive officer for the battalion that deployed 600 personnel to Afghanistan. And you just reading the evaluation, you played a very key role in that deployment. But then you were in country for only 6 months. And then you returned back here, and you were back on island for about maybe 8-9 months, and then you exited from the National Guard. What did not seem right with the picture was that all the OERs came in on time, and there were good evaluations, but at the end, you were in country for 6 months with a unit that you were certainly embedded with. And then for your final OER, although it was still a positive OER, the support form was not provided, and you never came back to sign your OER.
Sure.
So maybe if you can kind of
Absolutely.
clarify that.
Senator, when I made the decision to retire out of the Guam Army National Guard, I had made that known via a letter of intent. I submitted that to my battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Tuffer, who's sitting right behind you, or right behind me. I made it known to him, and then Adjutant General Benny M. Polino. At that point, I was the rear detachment officer in charge. As the department, as the battalion had redeployed, it was the decision of the Adjutant General then to have me transferred from the battalion, since they knew I was going to be exiting the Army overall and get transferred, as General Leon Guerrero had testified, to work as a special projects officer. And I served in that capacity and reported directly to General Leon Guerrero. In my tenure as the special project officer, I did exactly what I was told. I worked on special projects, correspondences, what have you, working directly for the Adjutant General. During that time, I submitted my DA Form 67-9, which is a officer, it's a support form for an officer evaluation report. I submitted it. Now that the Army does not submit hard copies, everything is submitted electronically. I filled it out. It took all of an hour to fill out that document. I forwarded to then the Secretary of the General Staff, Lieutenant Colonel Ron Delphin. I emailed it to him, and I did my part. I sent it to him. I made the assumption that Lieutenant Colonel Delphin was going to forward it to then General Polino. In November of 2014, it was time for me to exhaust all the annual leave or all the ordinary leave that I had accumulated. So I went to Hawaii, and I out-processed at Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. And from that point on, I was on annual leave. And at the time that I was asked to come back to sign it, initially I was off island. And then when I came back, I submitted my common access card, also known as a CAT card. It allows for a digital signature. Again, the Army is all about digitalizing their documents. I made it known that I had relinquished my common access card, and that I was more than willing to come in and sign what we call in the Army a wet copy, a wet signature. I was told no, it had to be submitted electronically. I said, well, at this point, unless you want to bring me back out of retirement, then the only option is to sign it manually. They said, Joe, and if you read Army Regulation, Senator, you will know that the signature that's required for the officer evaluation report, or the officer evaluation report, is only to verify Part A, which is the administrative portion. That has no bearing on Parts B, which is filled out by the rater, or no bearing, which is filled out in Part C, which is filled out by the senior rater. So the guidance that I received was, Joe, don't worry about it. You're retiring out of the Guard. That's only going to acknowledge the administrative portion of that report, and that this OER will be submitted, will go forward. So I said, all right, if that's the stance that the Guam Guard is taking, or the Guam Army National Guard is taking, then very well. I'm willing to send that officer evaluation forward. And again, there was no doubt in my mind, Senator, that my performance was anything less than definitely less than satisfactory, if not above satisfactory. I have always performed to the best of my abilities. I've always taken that extra mile, taken that extra step to perform. There was no doubt in my mind that I would receive a very good OER. So I was confident in what General Polino was going to put in the officer evaluation report, since he was my rater, my senior rater, and I allowed that officer evaluation report to go forward. So by no stretch of the imagination was my signing that officer evaluation report any sign of my refusing to come in to sign it. It was more of a matter of, I was on leave, I was off island when I was first asked to come and sign that, and then on top of that, by the time I had come back, my common access card had already been forfeited, and I couldn't sign it electronically. Again, I was willing to sign it manually. I was told otherwise. So that is why you see that officer evaluation report has no signature.
Thank you. And for the record, I want the record to be very clear that your final rating by General Polino certainly was a very good rating, and so there was nothing negative there. I have just one more question, and that is, you apparently have a lot of irons in the fire right now. You've got a steep learning curve as the new chief of police. You've got a family to tend to. You're working on a terminal degree. Where are you going to find the time for something?
Senator,
either something's got to give, or
Senator, as a former Army officer, you know all too well that it's all about, number one, time management. It's about prioritizing those things that are important to you, and it's about support from your family. So as long as you manage your time effectively, what Joe Cruz faces today is no different from what Joe Cruz faced in 1997 through 1999 when I was pursuing a bachelor's degree and working with a SWAT team. And it's no different from when Joe Cruz went through a graduate school and went through a master's degree from 1999 to 2000 when, again, Joe Cruz was a SWAT officer in the Guam Police Department. There's no difference. Joe Cruz may be up against a steep learning curve. But if you prioritize, and everybody across, all the senators understand that it's all a matter of prioritizing. And as long as you prioritize correctly, and you take what's important, and you have support from your family, it's all about making it fit in that 24-hour day. The learning curve that you referenced that is steep today is no steeper than it was 14 years ago. Or 15 years ago when I pursued those degrees. It's no different. As a matter of fact, it's steeper back then because back then I had to attend a traditional brick and mortar school. Now my degree is online with Walden University. So I can study in the comfort of my home, in my office. I can study wherever I'm at, wherever I have connectivity to Wi-Fi. I can study anywhere. Versus having to go and sit in a classroom up at the university, I can study anywhere. So again, it's a matter of prioritizing. It's a matter of setting those priorities. It's a matter of understanding what's important and getting support from the family to be able to help you through that. It's no secret that when you pursue a doctoral degree, that your social life goes away. And it's been said time and time again because there's so much reading, there's so much research to get done. But as long as people understand what you're up against and you got the support network for that, you prioritize those things that are important to you and you address it accordingly, I think it would all fit. I am more charged now. I am more, I want this degree because it's going to make me a better person. I'm going to be able to take what I learned from this degree and apply it to the Guam Police Department and apply what I learned to affect positive social change, as I indicated earlier. So yes, Senator, there are many irons in the fire, but Joe Cruz is all about iron in the fire. And Joe Cruz has been forged time and time again. He's been tested, and I think Joe Cruz is up to the test again.
Great. And Mr. Chairman, since I'm on a roll, and Mr. Joe Cruz is on a roll, let's talk about transparency in the department.
Yes, sir.
So one of the, in Guam law, one of the powers of the chief of police is to receive, consider, and investigate allegations brought by the public concerning any conduct of the department through its officers or employees and to take appropriate action thereon. And so in going into the GPD website, I found that in calendar year 2015, which only went up to April of 2015, a total of 55 complaints had been filed, and reporting, but I think 90% of the cases remain open. And I think the years before that, the percentage of cases closed was really not that much. So what would you do to rectify this issue of, the internal investigations and providing the information as required by law?
Well, Senator, thank you for that question. That's a very good question. I will tell you, the first thing that I have done to be able to deal with those types of inquiries and those investigations, those allegations made against our officers, it starts with that empowerment, Senator. And by me empowering my subordinate commanders to be able to lead at their particular level, as those complaints come into the police department, it's all about handling, it's all about giving it back to that commander to deal with those issues. Does it mean that those complaints can't come to the chief of police? Absolutely not. But when you reference 55 complaints that have come into the Guam Police Department, when you talk about over 90% of them, not having gone through the process, that's because in the past, in my honest opinion, not taking away anything from my predecessors, that everything went to the chief that needed to be taken a look at. Everything went to that. It all rested on the chief of police to take a look at that. What I've done is I've turned that around and I've empowered my subordinate commanders. I've empowered my subordinate leaders to be able to be accountable for their actions as well as the actions of the officers that they lead out in the field or in their particular sections. So to alleviate some of that, Internal Affairs will track these complaints as they come in, but it's a matter of pushing it down to that subordinate commander and letting that subordinate commander look into the issue and address the issue and talk to the public and address the public's concern and the issue of all these allegations that have come up. And as long as we maintain transparency in the Guam Police Department by taking those allegations and posting it on our website so that it's available for the entire island of Guam and everybody else to see, then we've done our part to maintain transparency. It's part of open government and open governance, and it's about giving it back to those subordinate commanders for them to be responsible for their actions as well as the actions of their officers and employees.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Senator Ada. Senator Nicholas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Acting Chief, you had a couple St. Nicholases testify in favor of you today.
Yes.
And a couple Kittigoas also.
Yes.
Having come from the same familial upbringing, you and I both know that does not come into play at all when it comes to evaluating people for whatever job they need to do for the community. I got really excited about you and your nomination when we spoke a little over a month ago. I talked to you about some of my concerns I had in my experience working with the Guam Police Department in the short time that I've been in the legislature. And I was very excited by your answers. And so what I would like to do is ask you those same questions again, so we can get them on the record.
Absolutely.
Because my style is, I like to give everybody the opportunity, especially when they have so many good people testifying on their behalf for their leadership. But in the end, it comes down to actually delivering on the expectation.
Sure.
So today, I'll just ask you those questions so we can get them on the record. And then maybe this time next year, we'll be able to follow up on how they've progressed.
Absolutely.
My first concern, you kind of touched on it a little bit when you mentioned promotions over the next fiscal year. But we talked about the concern I had with respect to a clear career path for all of our officers.
Yes.
And one of those concerns stemmed from the knowledge that came to my attention when I heard that there's some PO1s or PO2s who've been in that position for many, 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 many years, and who did not have a clear career path on how to advance through the ranks.
Sure.
So for the record, can you testify as to how you intend to address the bottleneck or the stagnation in career path opportunities for the officers of the Guam Police Department?
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator. Thank you for that question. Since I've been appointed as the acting chief, one of the first things I've noticed is that there was upward mobility in upper management and even in mid-management. But as I went out to each of the 4 precincts, as I went out to every section, every division in the department, I noticed that from Police Officer 1 up through Police Officer 3 into Sergeant 1, that some of those officers had not been promoted coming up on 15 years. And for me, I thought that that was really tragic, because our officers deserve more. They deserve better than that. Whatever it took for me, as I saw it, to find it in the budget to be able to promote these officers is how I saw that we can alleviate that bottleneck. Now, when you talk about career progression, I'm of the contention that I like to take what I've learned in the military and the promotion system in the military and mirror that to the Guam Police Department, and be able to provide professional development for our police officers as well, to be able to get them to training either here on Guam or off island, so that we can, the word I like to use is be able to mature our force. And by maturing our force, we are able to teach them how to be better leaders, so that they don't just go from police officer 2 to police officer 3 to be an immediate supervisor and they have no knowledge on how to lead officers or civilian employees. So the concept that I bring is to be able to promote the force, to mature the force, which is part of my vision statement, get them the training, mirror the promotion system so that it's very similar to that of what's seen in all branches of the military, to allow upward progression on a regular basis, so that it's not just a fiscal constraint, but there are actual checks in the box, if you will, where our officers need to go off and be able to develop themselves professionally, so that they can move up the ranks and be ready for that next for that promotion. So it is my intent within the next fiscal year to be able to do that. Now, one of the things we talked about also is a strategic plan, and that strategic plan for the Guam Police Department encompasses that as well. If we can look at a strategic plan in the Guam Police Department over the next 3 to 5 years, I think that that's going to pave the road to be able to set up a viable promotion system that anybody can look at and look forward to be able to get promoted to the next rank and the next rank, and be able to look forward to a very fruitful career in the Guam Police Department all the way up through to becoming a ranking officer.
Fantastic. So we can expect then that the career paths can become clear to all the officers within the next fiscal year.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
And the second thing that we talked about was the disappointment I had around this time last fiscal year, when I was looking at some of the numbers when we were looking at the police department budget a year ago, and I was very concerned with the what I felt at the time was an underprojection of the overtime budget that ended up running out in February of this year. Sure. And so I asked you a very direct question that I would like to get on the record, because I thought your answer was excellent. And my question that I asked you was, when it comes to the needs of the Guam Police Department, how are you going to make sure that the politics does not get in the way? It
is my contention, it is my belief
that the only politician in the Guam Police Department should be the chief of police, him or herself. That politics in the Guam Police Department, as we understand it, the bureaucracy that exists in the department should not be of concern to the officers, to the civilian employees. All that should be transparent to them. Their ability to accomplish their mission and execute and be able to conduct themselves accordingly is what they should be concerned with. The politicking in the department is left to the chief of police. It should be the chief of police that collaborates with the governor and the lieutenant governor's office, that collaborates with the legislative body, the 33rd Guam legislature. And it's the chief of police who should be going out and visiting our partners, our stakeholders in the community, the private sector, who are all out there willing to help the department. That should be the chief of police's role, so that the politics that has a tendency to get involved in that is transparent to our officers. Our officers should be focused on their mission of serving and protecting, and not dealing with the politics that has a tendency to create infighting, that has a tendency to create factions in the department. That kind of politicking should be left to the chief, and everybody else should be focusing on their mission to be able to serve and protect the people.
So with respect specifically to what transpired a year ago that led to an eventual budget shortfall in the overtime this February, we had to go out and find cash in the most obscure places in order to be able to bail out the police department shortfall. I really feel that if we, at the time, this time a year ago, had a firm commitment for the well-being of the police department that stated clearly what the financial needs are going to be with respect to overtime, we could have made accommodations for that in the budget. So how are you going to make sure that the police department and its needs are not going to come second to anybody else's agenda outside of the police department?
The needs of the police department is again, it's all based on their mission, and their needs is based on what the people of Guam need. They should be focused on that. If we exercise, fiscal responsibility in the Guam Police Department, if the leaders in the Guam Police Department, based on the guidance given by the chief, are able to focus on that and be able to exercise fiscal responsibility, I think we will definitely be able to stay within the means that we have for our budget. For the officers to have to go outside of that and be able to lobby for that outside of that, I think it takes away from their ability to accomplish their mission as police officers, and that is something that should be left to management. And I think that if management focuses on that, and they focus on that fiscal responsibility and the judicious execution and the management of the funds made available to the Guam Police Department, that we will be able to manage our overtime so that it is focused strictly on the accomplishment of our mission, being able to serve and protect.
Thank you very much, Senator Nicholas. Vice Speaker Cruz, and then Senator Morrison.
Thank you very much. Chief, I was very impressed with the discussion about you bringing in your management team and the fact that you're planning this promotion of your officers who have been left out for the last 15 years.
Yes,
there is a saying also that a leader is judged by the way he treats the least amongst them. And though I don't find them to be the least amongst you, they are uniformed officers of the police department, and that's the reserve officers.
Yes, sir.
And I know every time you've come in here, I've asked you, have you addressed the pittance, the measly amounts of money that these poor people are owed? As I understand it, there's still money owed from last fiscal year to them, and this year there's still money since March or April that hasn't been provided to them. And I'm glad you're taking care of everybody else, but I mean, I've always had problems with the thought of having a reserve because, but if they're going to have them, then at least treat them like human beings, please.
Yes, sir.
And so, have you been able to address that issue, or will I continue to be receiving emails about the fact that the reserve officers are still, I mean, and their combined total amount, I think, is like $60,000 for the entire group. How could we possibly have not given them their pay?
Yes, sir. I understand, and Senator, thank you for that question. And that is a very important question, and it's something that I take to heart. Our civilian volunteer police reserve force helps us out by augmenting our full-time force. And to date, as of just today, I went back and verified that all the timesheets that have been submitted to my office for processing have been signed. So everything up to April, May, and June has been processed. I've looked at each and every timesheet. What Ms. Susan Regis had mentioned, whereby I block off 2 hours of time every day so I can read each and every document, I've actually read through each and every civilian volunteer police reserve timesheet just to make sure that everything was in place. And I've signed off on those documents. They've been submitted to payroll. And right now we're looking at processing $7,250 worth of stipend to pay the officers who have met the threshold to be able to receive a stipend, i.e. they've done their probation of 500 hours, they've met the 42 hours that's required to work throughout the month to receive the stipend. I've looked through all that, I've verified that that information is correct, I've approved it, and I've sent it forward to our payroll section, and to date, everybody is caught up at this point. So I would say that the chances of me coming in here to testify before your committee on regarding this issue is not an issue at this point, because I paid direct attention to the stipends for this.
When was that signed?
I signed it effective Friday.
And so
effective today, as of today,
are the checks released?
The payments have been sent to Department of Administration, direct payment. The paperwork has been submitted to DOA for direct payment. The processing of that direct payment is now in Department of Administration. Once they're ready to process, or once they've gone through that process and they're ready to cut the checks, they contact the Guam Police Department, we pick up the checks, and we issue it out to the police reserves. So as far as what we are going to do to make sure that they get paid, we've done all that. We've turned it into DOA. DOA has received it as of today. That will go through its process of so that the check can be cut as a direct payment. They contact us, we pick it up, and then we submit it to the reserve officers.
I'm going to take that as your gospel truth. And I'm just disappointed that it took until last Friday to get this, because we have been talking about this since almost the first day that you came on.
Yes, sir.
And I expect that when you take care of your senior officers, when you take care of your regular police officers that haven't been promoted in the last 15 years, please recognize the fact that for some reason, I'm not in, the police department has decided to have a civilian volunteer force requiring them to work 41 hours before they get even a penny of stipend. Please make sure that all your senior officers, make sure that all of their reserve officers submit their pay stubs so they can get their pittance of $100 for the month. It's just unconscionable to me that these guys, as you put it, $7,000 for 4 months. Please.
Yes, sir.
And to follow up on Senator Snicklis's, in the committees that you've listed, is there a committee to address the issue of working on the overtime?
Yes.
So that, when do you expect a report or some SOP from that?
Sir, the General Orders Committee that I formulated has already met. They've already given me the first draft to revise our general order on overtime. I have taken that, I've put it before legal review with the Attorney General's office. I put it through the review, it's before the review of Department of Administration and BBMR to make sure that we are we are executing we are managing the policies that we have in place are to manage our overtime monies correctly, and that we are legally within the confines of what we are able to do to manage our overtimes. Once I get that back from the Attorney General's office, and once I receive it back from the Department of Administration and BBMR, I'm ready to move forward and sign that, and I'd be willing to provide you with a copy of that general order to show you how we are exercising fiscal responsibility in the management of our overtime.
Thank you very much. And one of the other questions that Senator Nicholas and I had great issue with last year during the budget hearing, and I've asked you about this time, is executive security.
Yes, sir.
Is there going to be a separate committee that's going to be put together to address that issue, and how that is the expenses that are run up there are addressed?
Absolutely, Senator. And again, it is my intent that the General Orders Committee will take a look at the General Order as it is right now. The document that governs how our officers up at Executive Security conduct business is in a unit directive. It is my intent to get that caught up in a general order, which is more codified, if you will. That the General Orders Committee is taking a look at that, or that's one of that's high on my priority list of priorities for them to take a look at, to see how they conduct business up at when they provide security to the first families, and to be able to make sure that the way they conduct business in there is will address the issues of overtime that's accrued by that section, and address their issues of traveling.
Your predecessor kept that division or that detail directly under him. Have you kept that to yourself, or has that been delegated to a different officer?
In my testimony, Senator, I had mentioned that I'm realigning certain units within the Guam Police Department. That section within the Guam Police Department is one of the sections that I'm realigning to formulate what's called the Special Operations Division. In the past, historically, we had a separate Special Operations Division. By the decision made by my predecessor, it was decided to dissolve the Special Operations Division and move certain units under the auspices of the Office of the Chief of Police. My intent is to realign that and reformulate a Special Operations Division and put executive security amongst other units or other sections in Special Operations Division, so that they're managed by a senior lieutenant or a captain, so that senior lieutenant or captain can effectively look over those particular divisions and make sure that they are, number one, conducting their operations correctly, and that they have a close look on the amount of overtime that they're spending, and they're able to take care of them administratively and logistically as well, because doing it under the offices of the Chief of Police is very difficult. And in my mind, it didn't make sense that it's done that way. It makes more sense in my mind to formulate an SOD, formulate those units, assign a captain or a lieutenant to take care of them, and be responsible for taking care of all those sections.
Thank you very much. And if you would, through the chair, provide us with copies of those general orders and whatever realignment plan that you anticipate. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you very much, Vice Speaker Cruz. Before I proceed to Senator Morrison, just one particular regarding compensation. What is the status on the provision for the promised compensation pay for your civilians? Because that has been an issue, ongoing issue with regards to the Guam Police Department. The civilian compensation pay.
At this point, the testimony that we gave during the budget hearing for promised compensation is something that we're taking a look at. You're referencing, I'm assuming that you're referencing
the civilian details and the Department of Administration's review of the assignments and the reassignments.
Okay, those are all issues that we are taking a look at right now. I'm working with my staff and the management. We're working with Department of Administration, and we're working with the Attorney General's office to take a look at that. We are looking at those prior year obligations, and we have identified some monies in the current or in the upcoming Budget Act to address some of those issues, but we're continually working with the Attorney General's office and Department of Administration to be able to identify those issues of promised compensation.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Senator Morrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of felt coming to this public hearing that it was going to be very intense, as I've witnessed working out right next to you many times. And just to disclose, thank you for spotting me a couple of times.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for the presentation, Chief, and I want to thank all those who took time to be here to support your nomination, provide testimony. I kind of addressed a couple of my concerns of how I've experienced in the past sitting up here, some of the challenges of the disconnect of community, our stakeholders, our mayors, our private sector, community, and to reestablish that relationship. There's a lot of people watching this hearing, and obviously it's been nice to see a great momentum of support here. Obviously, we know there are many challenges out there.
Sure.
And one of those concerns I know is we know there is a rise in crime,
yes,
criminal behavior, violent crimes out there.
Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts, or what are your plans, or what are these reforms that are taking place within your agency? How is that eventually, at the end of the day, going to reduce crime?
Well, the recent rash of crime that has come up is something that I've addressed with my management, with my staff, my commanders, and we understand that at this point it goes back to what the public's looking for. The public's looking for a bigger presence of the Guam Police Department. So it is our intent, it is my intent, again, to continue to recruit. We've got a 6th police officer training cycle that I just swore in on Friday, and they're out on the road going through OJT. We've got the 7th police officer training cycle getting ready to start up 2 days before the 6th POT cycle graduates. And then we've got the 8th police officer training cycle that we're looking to hire in FY16. So the plan that we're looking at this point is, again, to increase our presence. It is to put more police officers out on the road, to be able to relieve some of the pressure that's being felt by those police officers out on the road due to a shortage of manpower. One of the big initiatives that I'm looking at is to revitalize a program that existed in the Guam Police Department known as the CAT program, the Crimes Against Tumon Tourists, to revitalize that program. There are many stakeholders, business people in the business community who are reaching out to the Guam Police Department saying, how can we help you? We want to see a bigger presence down there. If you can get us the officers down there, we're willing to help you out in being able to get vehicles, get equipment down there to help out the officers down there. So it is my intent to bring back the CAT program and bring back the Beach Patrol program, and to continue to increase our presence down there and protect our community. It is my intent to, again, be able to get more officers out on the road so that we go from being one supervisor, 1 desk watch, and 3 beat officers to having at least 5 beat officers out there, if not more. 1 for every beat that's out there. So again, it's through the hiring process, finding the money in the budget, reallocating some resources, being able to continue to hire so that we can be able to get to a level where we have a sufficient amount of police officers based on our population here on the island. And I'd mentioned a Department of Interior study that was done back in 2012. Based on our population here on the island and what public law says that we should have in the department, it's my intent, again, to continue to increase that population so that we continue to get more of our officers out on the road.
Thank you, Chief. I asked that, obviously we know our whole goal is basically to reduce crime. I asked that question so that the public or the listening audience can hear this, because at the end of the day, that's the whole goal. Everything that we're doing here, throwing money at it, looking at the budgets, paying out overtime, addressing all these past due obligations. At the end, I think the people just want some peace of mind out there that what we're doing right now bringing in new leadership is, at the end of the day, we are going to address crime in a much better and more effective way. So thank you for answering that. In this day and age, we had a little brief discussion about some of the tools that you're looking at. You talked about the force multiplier. In fact, I don't know if you recall that, and some of the resources and things that you believe will drive that. And we had a discussion about Public Law 31-41. And I asked if you could put that on your priority list. And that was a piece of legislation that was driven by our stakeholders, by our mayors, by the police department, by fire, E911, the folks at the emergency reporting system. And that was to address a comprehensive organizational approach to driving surveillance, video surveillance cameras throughout our community, in the public. Have you had any discussions with the fire chief regarding that legislation?
Absolutely.
The public law?
I have met with Chief St. Nicholas, and it's something that we're taking a look at right now. Chief St. Nicholas, myself, Mr. Will Castro, and Brigadier General Roderick Leongro, we are executive members of the Interoperable Community Communications Work Group. And in our discussions, we have brought up that particular issues of being able to tie in those video cameras, as you have mentioned, that act as a force multiplier. Because we can't put a police officer out in every park, because we can't put a police officer out in every street corner, these cameras can be force multipliers to help us out, so that these cameras will be monitored by the staff at E911, so that when they see that there's suspicious activity, possible criminal activity, that can be reported and a police officer can respond accordingly. So it's definitely something that I'm excited about. It's something that Chief Joey St. Nicholas is excited about, as well as General Leon Guerrero and Mr. Will Castro, as we're working together to collaborate as part of that ICC or the ICWG to be able to get this in place, implemented, to be able to keep our community safer.
Thank you, Chief. If there's any way you can keep us posted on that, I'd like to be involved and seeing how that's progressing. I certainly believe, just from data and with that tool in place, has done wonders for many jurisdictions. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Morrison. Senator Rodriguez, and then Senator Franklin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And
already working through that process. So we are in the process of getting those payment, or being able to pay those employees out as well. For the future promise comps, we're working with again the Attorney General's office and DOA to look at those future promise comps.
when you say future, you mean for anything that you would incur moving forward?
Absolutely.
Okay, so for the ones that already are owed, that's something with DOA, and that's
Yes.
so if that's the case, I would just recommend that you would follow up.
Yes.
And I think a personal phone call to the director would really help in getting that process moved forward. So that's those are the two issues. One of them also is, you said earlier when I think one of my colleagues had asked about transparency, and that you felt that your officers, whether they be the high ranking or just the rank and file, that it was kind of brought up in the sense of you're, as a chief, you would take on the political nature of the job, and that you won't have your officers speak directly to stakeholders, to us, the senators, too. I took it as a way that any communications would just come from you. Is that how I understand it?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not, Senator. Every citizen, to include our police officers, has their right and prerogative to talk to all their senators. what I was referencing was that the politicking piece, the lobbying for more money, lobbying with this particular body, and lobbying with Adelu should be a focus for the chief of police, and should not be a focus for the police officers who really need to be focusing on law enforcement and not worrying about overtime to pay out their overtime. Let that be the worry for the chief. Let that be the responsibility for the chief to sit in front of a body such as this and lobby for more money, and go to Adelu and speak to the chief financial officer and the director of BBMR and DOA. Let it be my responsibility and not the responsibility of my officers and my civilians. They should be more focused on accomplishing their mission of serving and protecting our people, and let that be the responsibility of the chief. And that's what I meant by referencing that I should be the one to do all the politicking.
Okay, no,
it doesn't mean that
fine.
they can't come and talk to you.
Okay.
By all means.
No, and that's fine. And that's what I just wanted to clarify. I just want to share with you that prior to your time, this OVIS fee that you had referenced in your opening statement, this was really something that I worked very closely with, with your officers.
Yes.
Even during the public hearing, I said this was a police officer-driven type of legislation.
Absolutely.
Because we spoke to them, and really I think, and I agree with you. If it's in terms of talking about the payments that need to be for overtime, to speaking with the front office, then that's your job.
Yes,
but I think in terms of ideas like the OVIS fee, that was directly a product of your men and women in the police force.
Absolutely.
That I work very close with to make it happen. So I think just gotta be kind of flexible, when it comes to issues like that.
Oh, absolutely, Senator, and I agree. Our officers out there have great ideas on how to make things better for the Guam Police Department. I have never told any of the officers or civilian employees that they could not seek the help of the legislative body to make things better for the police department. So I agree that being able to voice those concerns obviously will pay dividends to the department and the people in general. What I've asked my staff, what I've asked the commanders is to be able to understand where the officers are coming from and be able to bring those ideas forward through management, so that as these ideas are brought forth, it's one sound, it's one voice, and we're together, we're united. And it's not different people going to talk to different senators, and we're not united, we're disjointed, for lack of a better term. So it is my contention that those kinds of ideas should be brought forward so we can take a look at it. And from a management perspective, we can be comprehensive. We can be critical about those particular issues and be able to talk it a lot better and be able to present it in a lot better way.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I really respect it. And I think with your type of leadership, with what you bring to the table, I think your officers would feel comfortable in coming forward to you and bringing it up through the channels, right?
Absolutely.
So, Chief, one last thing is I've asked you this, when your first oversight hearing of the department is related to the crime lab.
Yes, sir.
I'm kind of, a little bit disappointed that it's not part of your short-term or long-term goals. I know that in your 64 days, I know that you've done a lot, and just by the testimony that you've received here this afternoon, it shows that, and I see it too myself.
Yes.
And I want to thank you for that. But I think more importance and the level of priority of the crime lab really needs to be elevated. I don't know how much more to say it. You've had the oversight hearings, the budget hearings. I know in 2017 you want to look at a new police headquarters, which includes the Forensic Science Division.
Yes.
But I think the problem today really is the crime lab, and I know that there hasn't been any much change. I mean, the place is still hot. I'm told. I know that for the evidence control section, a bid went out. I'm not sure how that is going, but maybe if you can just shed some light, Chief.
Yes, sir. Well, first off, Senator, I want to apologize for not highlighting that in my testimony, mentioning the Forensic Science Division. By no stretches of the imagination is it not one of my priorities. It is so much a priority for me that I do meet with Captain Tim Santos and Lieutenant Ron Titano almost on a weekly basis. And I will tell you that although it appears on the surface that we're not making any progress, in fact we are. What we're doing at this point is we are working with the, under the advice of Vice Speaker Cruz. We've reached out to the University of Guam, and we've established contact with their chief engineer to have him come in and take a look at the Forensic Science Division and figure out how we can address that issue. In addition to that, we reached out to the Director of Department of Public Works, Mr. Glenn Leon Guerrero. And initially we had his engineers come in and take a look at it. Now we're asking him to be able to work as the department's broker, if you will, to be able to work with those different private entities to be able to come in there and give us a no-kidding assessment of the state of affairs at the Forensic Science Division. As I had mentioned in the oversight hearing, if you bring in a contractor into the Forensic Science Division, if you brought in 5 of them, you will get 5 different versions of what the problem is there and 5 different versions on how to fix it. But I think that if we work with Glenn Leon Guerrero and Department of Public Works, and we work with the University of Guam, and they give us that assessment, and Glenn and DPW works as our broker, that we can get an honest, no-kidding assessment of the issues that face us at the crime lab. Because as it is right now, our people at the crime lab are either police officers, criminalists, or CSI investigators, crime scene investigators. We don't know anything truly about how to fix an air conditioning system or how to fix an exhaust system. So they could tell us 5 different things, and we know not better. So I think by bringing in these experts from the University of Guam and bringing in DPW and using them as a broker to get an honest assessment, we can truly figure out what's going on with that and be able to identify the funding so that we can fix the issues up there. So I will tell you, in addition to that, I've also signed off on paperwork to temporarily get split AC units up at the Forensic Science Division so that it's not as hot, so that it is the working conditions are not unbearable. So those are some short-term, some things we're going to see in the very near future to be able to make the working conditions up at the Forensic Science Division much more bearable.
Thank you, Chief. And so as we go into our budget for FY 2016, I know in the last hearing I asked for a report on what it's going to take for you to. I know you want to get an honest to goodness assessment. We've heard that from even your predecessor had said that even prior to you coming on board. So up at this point, if we don't have that assessment yet, I think it's very concerning to me. But what I really would like to have is what's it going to take us to get the job done? Because as we move into the fiscal year 16, our budget session, I think that's where for us here, it's going to have to make a hard decision. Absolutely. And like if we need to redivert, to reprogram funds, I think that's a decision that this body has to make. But I think we really owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our people. We built a real good building up there. But we just have to ensure that it's fixed properly so that it can operate the way it should be. So I'm looking forward to receiving that prior to our budget session. So
Yes,
thank
sir.
you very much, Chief.
You're welcome. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Rodriguez. Senator Feinblas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good morning, Joe, or good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Feels like it. And very impressed with not just the testimony that was provided for you, but in your testimony too. But I want to bring this back to Joe Cruz, okay? And I appreciate that you've taken the first couple months of your tenure as chief to be able to conduct assessments of the operations and what you have in the police department. But I'm kind of interested within the last 2 months, and you pointed out some of the issues, when you're talking about operational wise. But let me talk about personal wise. What is Joe Cruz's biggest challenge moving forward, assuming that you're the next chief of police with the Guam Police Department?
The biggest challenge that I face, honestly, Senator, is obviously in the fiscal realm of running the police department. We all know that we live in a fiscally constrained environment. I mean, that's the nature of how we conduct business these days. The biggest issue that we have is being able to be financially and fiscally responsible. Gone are the days where we just accumulate overtime for the sake of accumulating overtime. Gone are the days where we work, double time on holidays just for the sake of working it so that we can make more money. In an age of a fiscally constrained environment, the biggest issue that we're dealing is being judicious in the execution of the monies that are being made available to us. for this agency in this current fiscal year has made 2 separate appropriations to be able to meet the needs for overtime. And I will tell you, I hate to beat up the overtime issue, but it's the biggest issue that I'm dealing with right now. It's the biggest issue that this department is dealing with right now. And again, in and of itself, is it the overtime? Not necessarily. It's the issue of shortage of manpower. That's why we accumulate more overtime, because we're short of manpower. We're short of people, both uniform and civilian. So it's my push, it is my perspective in the department to be able to continually recruit more uniform officers, more civilians in the police department, so that those officers that are working in there, they're not accumulating more overtime. And in addition to that, we are not taxing, or we are not physically wearing our officers down. It disheartens me when I have to sign an overtime justification, and when I look at it, I'm looking at a police officer who, because of the management of that particular section and because of the shortage of manpower, is accumulating over 40 hours of overtime in one pay period. So I question that, and I question the commanders, and I question the management of that particular section. And are we doing our due diligence to make sure that we're watching out for that? Because it's not only about the money, although that's a big concern, but I'm also concerned about that police officer working a regular 8-hour shift or a 12-hour shift, having to work an additional 4 to 6 to 8 hours on top of that, and then drive home. And he or she is falling asleep behind the wheel. And we created that for that officer. And how much time are we giving that officer to spend time with his wife and his children, or her husband and her children? So those are all things that I'm considering and looking at right now. So it's an issue of personnel and manpower, which has a direct tie to the overtime. So it's kind of those 2 issues that I look at, the fiscal responsibility and the welfare of our officers right now, because I think that we're stretching our officers a little bit too thin right now. And those are the issues that I look at when I look at overtime sheets. Those are the indicators that tell me that our officers are working too long. They're working too many hours, and they're not focused, and they're not honing in on those things that need to be honed in on when they're conducting their duties in their capacity.
I appreciate that, because then it goes along to, I also like the fact that, you've brought on committees to be able to look at certain aspects of the police department, the general orders, of the overtime. Is there a plan, or do you intend, or may I suggest, a committee as well to be able to look at not just the physical fitness, the well-being of the officers, but the mental well-being?
Absolutely.
Of officers. You talk to a lot of the issues, and granted, maybe a lot of your issues too are compounded as a result of compounding problems, issues that have occurred over the years, and they've somehow become embedded, where they're no longer the exception, but they are the norm in the actions of many officers. As former police officers themselves, I have to say, while I've seen over the last 2 months, I have to admit, before walking into this hearing, I will tell you that there have been continued discussions, with a number of police officers, a number of individuals who are directly related with the police department. And I'm very impressed, and I must say, Joe, that I guess the impression that you provided, as well as the confidence that you've given to many of these individuals, have actually changed their minds and asking me to to forget what they told me, about you before,
sure,
and they support you today. And that goes to the testament. That goes to the testament of the confidence they have in you,
Thank you,
and their willingness to be able to work with you because they can see that there's somebody that you can work with.
Yes, sir.
So along those lines is I hope that part of the process too in evaluating or assessing where the department stands, you're right, that a lot of it can go back to the manpower, but maybe a lot of it too can go back to what were some of the issues as a result of the lack of the manpower and the things that you had to do. You had to, the Band-Aids. Maybe it's time to take that Band-Aid off that scar. It's no longer covering a wound, it's covering a scar.
Yes, sir. And
then have to work and deal with having to, with the scar on that. Another committee that I recommend that you can probably put together is, the laws that you have to enforce, or the laws that you're mandated to enforce or you're mandated to follow. Whether or not these are in fact laws that can be enforceable.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Did
Yes,
you know
sir.
that there's a law in the books that right now that says that if your dog comes to my yard and kills my Angola sheep and cashmere goat, that I can go to your yard and kill your dog?
I'm aware now, sir.
Okay, yeah, there is. Okay, so it's stuff like that, you know. Okay, first off, when was the last time I saw an Angola sheep or cashmere goat on Guam?
Yes, sir.
Or does it even exist? But it exists in our law book. So maybe that's something that you should look in
Yes, sir.
as a suggestion, because I like the way you're going with this. You're right. It's the 21st century. I like your idea in as far as your mission to adapt and to evolve. And
Yes, sir.
you know, we're at that point where it's going straight. You know, we have to go straight, but apparently we have to get back on track.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I appreciate that. And last question, Joe.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate, again, you've got a lot of great plans. If Joe Cruz ever gets in a rut, if Joe Cruz ever gets to a point where, okay, I don't think I can get there anymore, I don't have the will, the wherewithal to be able to do this, what do I need to do to be able to get you back on track? Or what does your department, or what does your family, what does your daughter need to do to be able to get you back on track?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So far, the only question that's really made me, no, seriously, Senator, my family's my rock. They keep me grounded in everything I do. My wife is my biggest supporter, and I think that in everything that I've done thus far in my life, in my careers as a military service member, in the police department, it's always my family that's kept me grounded to ensure that I don't get into that rut, so that Joe Cruz is no longer able to continue to drive on. And I think with the support network that I have, not to say that I will not run into a rut, but I think that they work very hard to continue to support me. And it's not just my family, but one of the reasons why I am so aggressive, or I take on a very aggressive attitude in the Guam Police Department, is because the men and women that you see in front of you today are all the motivation that I need right now. It's every day when I come into work and I see them and I talk to them, it's their issues and their concerns and their questions to me that keeps me motivated so that I don't fall into that rut. It's talking to them and going out to the precincts and being able to understand what they're dealing with that keeps me motivated. What is it gonna do to get me out of that rut? Honestly, I think that with the support that I have from my family, the support that I've got from the Guam Police Department to continue to push the department and take it in a positive direction, as well as the support from the community. I've met with a group of people called the Honorary Deputy Chiefs of Police, and I couldn't believe the amount of support that those folks were lending to the Guam Police Department to make themselves available to help that department, to help our agencies. And there are many other agencies out there, Friends of the Crime Lab. There's all kinds of entities out there that are all too willing to help the Guam Police Department and help Joe Cruz lead the charge so that I don't fall into that rut. I can't say what is it going to take for me to get out of that rut, because honestly, Senator, I really don't see myself falling into that rut. Not when I have the support of my family, not when I have the support of all the uniformed officers and the civilians that you see out here today, and not when I have the support of the community, of the people that are out here willing to help the Guam Police Department to make our island safer. I do not see myself falling into that rut.
Well, I came from that culture, okay, and I appreciate and I love your confidence, okay. And maybe this is a discussion. That's a question that should linger in your mind, because that's a discussion, ma'am, that you should have with your husband. Because when he comes home one day and he feels like he wants to give up, this is something that you can get back with him, and then with the staff officers, okay. Because there's going to be some day that you're going to walk in there and you're just going to want to take all of their heads off, okay. What is it going to be able to take to be able to get you? And the reason why I say this, Joe, is because what you're asking and what we're going to be providing to you, what I'm going to be providing to you, is that opportunity to lead one of the most elite organizations, not just on this island and not just in this region, but in the world.
Yes, sir.
And it comes with an awesome responsibility.
Absolutely.
Okay? And so to put all of those safeguards into place, I think is very important. I think that's some of the things that we lack a lot of times in law enforcement. And it's not to say because we don't hide behind the badges because we have a weapon on our side to protect us. But we're vulnerable, we're human, okay? We cry, despite what a lot of people think, okay? We cry, we scream, we yell, we laugh. And there are times that we get into a rut.
Absolutely.
Okay? So that's a suggestion that I have.
Sure.
And I appreciate that you feel that you never will be able to get into that rut. But just in case,
yes, sir.
Maybe just put that extra effort, that extra tool in that bag so that it can help you get through.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Boss. Senator Tony Ada.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Acting Chief, welcome to your family and to your men and women in blue here to provide testimony on the your confirmation. I just have one question. It's been a very long day, and the only question I have is that you spoke about many issues about priorities of the department and things that you want to do and that have been done already. But what is your priority for the men and women and the civilians in your department?
I'm sorry, Senator. I'm not sure I understand your question.
What you talked about priorities within the department, right?
Yes.
Saying that the crime lab is up and running, saying that we have vehicles for the officers, the men and women. What is your priority for the actual men and women in the department and the civilians that make your department? So in other words, do you plan to work on issues to increase morale, work on issues to actually bring unity to the department, training, different...
Yes.
What is your priorities for the men and women and the civilians in the department?
Well, my priority obviously is to be able to deal with some of the issues of manpower. That's always first and foremost. In meeting with all four of the precincts and talking to those police officers that are assigned out there, I will tell you that the common theme that you will hear from those officers is the shortage of manpower. It's being able to just get trained officers out there to be able to assist them in what they do. So it is my priority to obviously grow the Guam Police Department and get our department to mature. And part of that maturation, as I referenced earlier, is to be able to promote them for our civilians as well. We have to grow our civilian population as well and get them to mature in the department as well, so that we don't have people who are looking at retiring as police officer ones or clerk ones or what have you. So it's being able to, as Senator San Nicolas had mentioned earlier, laying out some kind of a roadmap for them and being able to get them the training that they need and being able to make them qualified to move to the next rank or move up to that next position, so that there's some kind of upward mobility and progress, so that after 30 years of service in the government, that they've rose through the ranks, whether it's uniform or civilian. So yes, I have priorities that for training. That's tied directly to the accomplishment of their mission in their capacity, but it's also tied to professional development, so that I look out for our force as well. So a lot of my priority is focused on the individual, the person in the police department, whether it's a uniform officer or a civilian. A lot of my priority is placed on them. A close second, again, is on the logistics side of the house, being able to provide them with the tools necessary, a vehicle fleet, anything that they need to be able to go out there and effectively do their job as police officers, not just out on patrol, but for our criminal investigators as well.
Yeah. And I know you brought that up previously, but what I was talking about is, what are you going to do for the men and women? What are you going to do for the civilians? I'm talking about family support programs or things like that of that nature, to ensure that if one of your officers need some type of moral support, or has an issue that he needs to be addressed.
Sure.
What kind of programs do you plan to bring forward to the department to address these issues?
I understand. Well, first off, it was always been an issue for me that we lack the asset in the Guam Police Department to be able to deal with the behavioral health side of the house in the Guam Police Department. We all know that in what we are required to do in law enforcement and what we're required to do to support our uniformed officers has a tendency to take its toll on our uniformed force. And that's something that I've seen over the years, and it's something that I saw as soon as I came back into the department, is that we have no asset to be able to deal with the behavioral health wellness of our force. What we've done in the recent past is I've worked with the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Clinic Center and our 3 chaplains to be able to form what's been called a crisis management team, to be able to allow our officers to be able to deal with any issues or concerns that they have. Because of the incident that occurred on July 13th, that obviously has moved to the forefront, because we now have officers having to deal with that issue at hand. So that crisis management team is in place to be able to have our officers deal with that. In addition to that, I'm working with Mr. Ray Vega, the director of the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Clinic, to come up with a viable solution to be able to find somebody who can work in the Guam Police Department as a staff psychologist, if you will, to be able to work with our officers. Now, there are other programs within the department that I intend to bring to light as well. We have an employees association. There's a bunch of retirees that want to help out the department as well, to help our force as well. But that employees association, in my opinion, will be able to help the department come together and support each other. There are events that I like to see in the department happen. Take, for example, in our police week, to be able to really take our police week activities and be able to make it a time for the police officers in the department, so that we can honor ourselves and help the community honor the police department. So those are just a few initiatives that I'm looking at to be able to get our force to come together, to build that camaraderie and that esprit de corps, by being able to take that month out of the year and that 1 week out of that month to be able to take a look at to be able to put ourselves out there and take a look at the good that we've done over the past year.
Yeah. And that's what I was looking for, because the health and well-being of the officer and the civilians within the department, if their health, if their well-being is being attended to, then naturally the family at home's well-being will also be attended to, and that's very important, so that the officers, your men and women, will be able to get the support of their families at home. And when everything is together, then I think things tend to work themselves out, and you'll be able to progress. And
yes, sir.
Chief, you had a very long confirmation hearing today. I thank you for coming out.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for answering the questions, and I thank you for answering my question,
Yes,
especially. You have my full support, and I look forward to voting on your confirmation in the next on our next legislative session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Espadon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Acting Chief.
Sir.
Here we are. I guess I'm the last one in line, huh?
Save the best for last, sir.
Well, thank you for that. I guess we should go home now. I got the endorsement. Actually, we have been through a long afternoon. You have fielded a lot of questions. In coming to this public hearing for you today, my way of thinking was to listen not only to the people who gave testimony on your behalf, and I'll tell you right now, it's a foregone conclusion that anybody who's going to come here to show up normally is going to say something in favor of the nominee. And that's important. And of course, the other important part about that is who says it, and you look at their background and really whether they truly mean it. And I tell you had some tremendous support today.
Yes,
I was very impressed. I was actually more impressed with you just sitting here and fielding the questions that you fielded and answered it. Because sometimes it's in how you answer it, with what kind of conviction, with what kind of sincerity, with what kind of passion do you really answer it with, that will really determine, in my mind, for my vote, whether you'll get it or not, whether you will get that vote. And I'll tell you right now, I'm very satisfied with, your presentation today,
Yes,
this hearing. There's another issue I wanted to bring up, and I think I've told you this. I do know you. Although we never met personally until you came into my office, I know you because I know your family. I've met your mom and your dad back in the day. Your oldest brother was my classmate. I had no clue you were his brother until I saw a picture of him, I believe, at some service at church.
Yes, sir.
And that told me a lot because, again, even when your cousin testified, I believe, and talked about the family the family values and how you were raised, I understood what she was saying because that's exactly how I understood your family to be. That's exactly how your mom and your father always presented themselves to me whenever I had a chance, that opportunity to interact with them. And so I know that you're an extension of those values. Chief Izazaki, I think he definitely gave a good, as short as it was, and as he stated, he's known you only for a very short period of time, but he likes the way you think. And I appreciated that comment because in answering a lot of the questions that were posed to you, again, it took an ability to do some mental gymnastics to be able to display the analytical abilities that you have to be able to address whatever situations come your way as chief. And they're going to be a lot. And I was satisfied with the way you were able to handle that. Again, your way of thinking, how in presenting your management style speaks a lot as well to me. I'm not going to ask any more questions, but there is one last comment I'd like to make regarding your nomination, and that is I'm definitely in favor of you being the next chief of police for many different reasons, from things that people have said about you, from things that you've said, from the way you fielded yourself, the way you've handled yourself. But going forward, more than that, even your military background speaks to a certain level. We know that there's a military buildup coming. The police department is going to have to work hand in hand with the military and because of the incoming Marines. I believe you understand the mindset that's involved here. And I think that right now is a time that when we start talking about partnering up with the military in terms of their law enforcement abilities to make sure that their sailors and their soldiers are, going to be able to abide by the laws, whether it's in the tourist district or wherever it may be, that you would definitely have a good understanding how to approach that and work with our partners in the military. A lot of the senators, in fact, every single senator had some good input by their questions and then by the request to you, and I believe you in everything you've said. And so with that, I'd like to say you have my full support, and I thank you for this hearing. And I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Espadon. That concludes our discussions. And Mr. Cruz, thank you very much for being forthright with the committee members and being able to respond to any direct questions and also to the general public. But I just want to close with this because, Mr. Cruz, you know and understand the nature of what your responsibility is going to be.
Yes, sir.
You will be the premier law enforcement official here in our island, ensuring that, in fact, public safety is provided. So I want to turn this closing comment to Mrs. Cruz and to Ella Marie and to the family members. You have it's going to require a lot of patience and a very giving heart. And just to allow him to move in this direction, to be able to serve our community in this respect, I thank you very much on behalf of the committee and on behalf of the people of Guam. Once should he, and I anticipate he absolutely will get the vote, but once that process begins, he will continue to be required by the community to ensure community presence, to ensure empowerment of the police force, to ensure other things so that, in fact, the people of Guam can feel safe. So for your generous heart, I want to thank you very much from as a family member supporting Mr. Cruz in this particular endeavor, because that's what it's going to take. There's going to be many times, and you experienced it just within the last 2 weeks, when in fact he will be woken up in the middle of the night to be able to tend to some activities taking place in our community. So for that, I want to thank you very much. And Mr. Cruz, this concludes our confirmation hearing. The committee will continue to receive testimony up until the close of business, August 7th. The report will be presented to the legislature the week of the anticipated session of August 10th, and we anticipate voting on your nomination at that point in time. Thank you very much, Mr. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.